Ladies and gentlemen, we've got major news today. Shocking. The Teamsters union conducted a poll and the members overwhelmingly backed Donald Trump. Because of this, now you'd think the Teamsters union would just say, okay, all our members, they want Trump for president. We should endorse him. Instead, they said, you know what? We're not going to endorse anybody. Now, here's the best part. This is apocalyptic to Democrats. They have lost the Teamsters union. UAW is blaming Democrats for the loss of auto jobs. I don't know. With this is a major story that suggests they're not going to be able to win losing this much support, but we will see. But my favorite part of this story, Donald Trump gets asked, hey, the Teamsters union says they're not going to endorse a Democrat. What do you say to that? And Trump goes, oh, wow, it's a great honor. You know, they're good people. He's saying it as if he was endorsed, because we all know what this really means. The Teamsters union refusing to endorse the Democrat means they're backing Donald Trump. But look, they're not endorsing Trump. But in the poll, we've got the data the Teamsters released. It's nearly 2-1. The Teamsters favor Donald Trump. So we're going to talk about that. We've got the Fed lowering interest rates in Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, this was crazy this morning. The news broke while I was talking about the updates of the pager explosion story in Lebanon. Radios, handheld radios used by Hezbollah began exploding. So we're getting more reports that hundreds more have been injured. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll talk about the banning of memes. Mr. Beast is being sued. And then we're going to talk about Matt Walsh's Am I Racist? Because this is just too fantastic. The over on Rotten Tomatoes, they still are not putting up any critic reviews for him. This is a media blacklist for Am I Racist, despite it being 99% audience certified. So before we get started, my friends, head over to preservegold.com/Tim Financial experts are urging Americans prepare now. With inflation soaring, a border crisis affecting cities and small towns, and warnings of a recession, my friends, we are living in insane and unpredictable times. To protect your retirement accounts and 401ks, you should strongly consider physical gold and silver. Right now, Preserve Gold has an exclusive offer for my viewers where you can get up to $15,000 in free gold and silver with a qualified purchase, as well as a free guide. Text TIM to 50505 to learn more, or visit preservegold.com/TimPool. Preserve Gold has hundreds of 5-star reviews, millions of dollars in trusted transactions with happy clients. I am eternally grateful to Preserve Gold for sponsoring the show. Shout out. We appreciate your support. You can see the link in the description below, so check them out. But also head over to castbrew.com. Make sure you pick up your fine bag of Cast Brew coffee. We love Cast Brew coffee. You got Ian's Graphene Dream. Look at that, just sitting there beautifully in the ground coffee section. But more importantly, head over to timcast.com, click Join Us to become a member and support our work directly. As you may know, because we covered it yesterday, I have filed a lawsuit against Kamala Harris's presidential campaign for defamation. A lot of people were talking about it all day, but we covered it to the best of our abilities. If you believe that we should stand up for ourselves, stand up against the liars and the manipulators, and you would like to support our work as we do the work that we do fighting fake news every day, go to timcast.com, click Join Us or sign up. $10 a month, and you are helping us run this show, run our morning show, all of our other podcasts. We got 48 days until this election. So now more than ever, we've got to buckle down. We got to do the work. I think for this, much to the chagrin of my family, I'm probably going to now pick up weekends and start working weekends again, doing the morning show, because someone suggested, Tim, with this election coming up, you've got to work weekends, no days off. You're right. You're absolutely right. If you think that's a good idea, if you want to support me in that endeavor, then please go to timcast.com and become a member. But don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with each and every one of your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Natalie Winters.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am the co-host turned, I guess, temporary host, thanks to the Biden regime. Shout out to you guys for suing them. Of War Room, Steve Bannon's War Room. I also have a clothing line called She's So Right. But War Room is my main focus right now.
Right on. Thanks for hanging out. Ian is here.
Hi, everyone. Ian Crossland. I am a video game streamer, musician, actor, live podcast host. Great to be here. What about you, Cashman?
Hey, Shane Cashman. Happy to see you.
You too, dude.
Host of Inverted World Live every Sunday, 6 o'clock. And one day we're going to get Ian on.
It's going to be crazy.
Talk crazy
Talk
stuff.
about DMT, maybe even.
Everything.
Yeah, I like talking about
All of the craziness.
Psychoactives.
All right, you guys ready? Here we
I'm
go.
ready, man.
Do it.
This is huge news, ladies and gentlemen. Teamsters declined to endorse a presidential candidate this November. I'm going to tell you right off the bat, that is a de facto endorsement of Donald Trump. What ends up happening, and this is crazy. Let me see if I can just pull this up. We got John Rich here with a great tweet. August 30th, John Rich said, you know him, rock star, country musician star. He says, when this is all over, the Dems are going to wish they had just kept Joe. He says, I still believe the post below will come to pass. Take a look at this. In June, the Teamsters said Biden 44% to Trump 36%. But when they brought in Harris, it is now Trump 58% to Harris 31%. This is apocalyptic for the Democrats. The Teamsters have issued their release in the presidential endorsement polling data saying, for the past year, the Teamsters Union has pledged to conduct the most inclusive, democratic, and transparent presidential endorsement process in the history of our 121-year-old organization. And today we are delivering on that promise to our members, said Teamsters General President Sean M. O'Brien. Our members are the union, and their voices and opinions must be at the forefront of everything the Teamsters do. Our final decision around a possible presidential endorsement will not be made lightly, but you can be sure it will be driven directly by our diverse membership. And then they posted this, and this is from 1:52 p.m. Who should the Teamsters endorse for president in 2024? We can see Town Hall straw poll originally in April to July was Biden 44 to Trump 36.3. RFK was 5.6. Cornel West actually got 1.7. Shut up. And then as of July 24th to September 15th, Harris 34% to Trump 59.6. We're going to round that up to 60%. We're rounding that up. I don't know why they're rounding it down. We're rounding it up. Now, in their research phone poll, it is Harris 31 to Trump 58. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, when I say the Teamsters back Donald Trump, I'm not saying the bureaucrats and the pencil pushers, the paper pushers. I'm talking about the rank and file, meat and potatoes people who are running the show, the Teamsters. The people who do the job, the blue collar American workers are saying Donald Trump.
Well, is there not, I think, a beautiful metaphorical significance to that is the Trump campaign going back all the way to 2016, where it has always been the grassroots, the rank and file membership of the Republican Party. Donald Trump was the first person to put the Republican Party in alignment with their interests and not the donor class, not the, high upper echelon people who I'm sure work at the Teamsters Union and think that, I just love, you're so right, that they put 59.6, that they didn't round up, right? It's all intentional, but I'd say shout out to Trump, and I think it's going to be a good election.
It's a lot of people that weren't voting. I mean, he had 30-some%, and then as soon as now the new poll comes out with Kamala instead of Joe, there's 17% more people have actually gotten involved. It was as if...
Well, there were other candidates.
But it still says 6% other candidates, and now 59% of them want Trump. Before it was like 30-some. Like, it's like people were like, not her. We're not bowing down to that.
That's absolutely wild. Kamala Harris was a miserable choice, not to mention Tim Walz. So now you go, look, I got to tell you, man, when you go and you meet these workers and union workers and you hear how they talk and what they have to say, there's no way they're going to align with Kamala Harris. And I believe it was the general president giving an interview earlier, and he says, look, a lot of our members are voting on social issues that matter to them. I'm seeing these responses on X where they're like, why would Teamsters support a president who's anti-union? It's like, my dude, have you actually read Donald Trump's positions on these things? He's definitely not anti-union. He is trying to earn their vote. He wants to win the working class white voter back.
I know a lot of people in New York who are in the union who are maybe liberal leaning, who aren't as plugged into the news, and they see Joe Biden, they kind of buy into his whole shtick as being like the union guy. So it was easy for them, but they know Kamala is a coastal elite who doesn't care about them at all. They don't need to know anything else.
However, not to crash the party, but I also think that we have to look at this story in the context of what has been a rapidly developing news cycle when it comes to the administration of elections here, because there's a difference between votes and ballots, right? And just yesterday, you have Axios reporting on the heels of the state of Pennsylvania coming out about a month ago saying to expect 2022 style delays in election results. This, of course, on the heels of letters coming out from the U.S. Postal Service saying, oh no, we're not going to be able to deliver mail-in ballots on time. Of course, all this fear-mongering that election workers are stepping down because Trump is intimidating them. So much so, CBS News had a story out last week saying, because we have such, amateur hour when it comes to the people who are administrating elections now, we might have, quote, mistakes. That's a direct quote. So as much as I love these numbers, I think there's always sort of a disconnect in terms of how they actually translate. And frankly, just like you were alluding to, when you see them pick someone who's so woefully unpopular like Kamala Harris is, it's because it's not really about candidate quality. It's about an institution, a system, frankly, the dark money groups that are popping her up. So to them, it doesn't really even matter. You see this in the fact that whether it's, the DNC platform, even Kamala's own campaign website, when they launched it, right, the source code was copying and pasting Joe Biden's stuff.
You guys remember that video where Joe Biden's in that factory and the guy asks him about taking our guns away and the guy yells at the working class dude? This is the Democratic Party. You go look at Vox.com from 2016 and they said the Democrats have become the party of the wealthy, or are becoming the party of the wealthy. And they show that most of the people who are supporting Democrats and donating are higher salary, higher income individuals. With Donald Trump stepping in, he brought working class populism to the Republican Party.
Wall Street didn't endorse Trump in 2020. I believe they were very, very much behind Clinton. Or 2016, sorry.
Clinton. We say Hillary.
Well, and that's
when
why
you say
we
Clinton, I'm thinking Bill.
I just see them as like a two-headed monster. It's the same thing in my
But that's why I think the extension of that, you keep seeing all these, Republicans for Harris, or how many days in the news cycle is it going to be? Oh, a new group of, national security leaders who, frankly, were all Democrats to begin with, are all on the payroll or in some ways linked to the military-industrial complex, directly profit from the Ukraine war continuing. They come out and endorse Trump, and they wheel that out like they think it has any salience with the working class or with people who actually support Trump. But I think this poll shows you just how out of touch and how significant that disconnect is. But they're still going to keep cramming it down your throat because, like I said, I wish we operated in a place where elections were rooted in polls and poll numbers and, numbers like this. But it's
procedure.
It's ballot warfare.
Right.
Right.
So I want to show you this from the AP. Teamsters Union declines to endorse Trump or Harris for president. But my favorite part is they say the Teamsters said Wednesday that internal polling of members showed Trump with an advantage over Harris, a fact the Republicans' campaign immediately seized upon by sending out an email that said the rank and file of the Teamsters Union supports Donald Trump for president. Trump called the Teamsters' decision not to endorse a great honor. Dude, it's a great honor, he said. They're not going to endorse the Democrats. It's the big thing. I was watching live. Trump was at a bar in New York. It's called, what is it called? Pub Key? It's meaning public key. It's a crypto bar. And he's like the first president to buy with Bitcoin or something like that. And while he's there, someone asked him, they said, hey, the Teamsters have just announced they're not going to be endorsing a presidential candidate. Trump says, oh, wow, it's a great honor. And as if they said he had been endorsed.
The non-endorsement's the endorsement.
The non-endorsement is, it was funny because when the news broke, everyone's, of course, saying this is a de facto endorsement of Donald Trump. They have abandoned the Democratic Party. This means they are supporting Trump. Trump came out and said it's a great honor. He knew exactly what everyone else knew. The moment the Teamsters were like, we're not getting behind Kamala Harris, that meant the rank and file members wanted a Republican, and the Teamsters Union, the bureaucrats and the pencil pushers don't want to publicly say it.
It's the evolution of the Time magazine from February 2020.
What?
The secret cabal behind, the people seem to be behind Trump largely. Right, like the working class people. But then the Time magazine from February 2020 talked about how Trump was technically right. There was a secret cabal working against him to fortify the election. So I think of all this now is like outside of this, and what Natalie's saying is the gross evolution of what happened then, happening now.
Right. The elites of the union don't want to say. But I mean, it's kind of wild, right? You poll your members and they say, we want Trump. You go, okay, we're endorsing Trump. Nope. That's what's wild about it.
Just the phrase "the elites of the union" is like,
oh, I hate
that's there are no, the union's supposed to be all for one. Like there is no elitism in that system. There shouldn't be. Yeah, that's a funny way to look at it. But
look,
in charge of the union all of a sudden.
I like the concept of unions. And so this is the trick they try and get you on. They'll say something like, you're anti-union or whatever. And it's like, well, look. I oppose the large corporate scumbag unions that have existed for hundreds of years and have weird elites who run them who aren't these working class guys. The idea of, let's say you got a factory and there's like 30 employees and they're all just working class Joes and Janes or whatever. And they all get together and they're like, hey, man, the conditions are really bad. I think we should all, make a demand. So they all stop working and they get the manager and they say, hey, we're not going to keep working until you guys fix this thing. This thing's dangerous. We got a bad machine over here. And he says, no. And they say, well, then we're not working. Now you've got a real collective bargaining. You've got real stuff going on. I respect that. I respect that. It's not safe here. We're not getting paid enough. You need to fix this. What I don't respect, because in my experience with all these unions that I've been in, it's like you're an employee, you're in the union. The people who run the union are buddies with the management at the company, and they just tell you to shut up. And so all that ends up happening is someone takes money out of my paycheck and they don't do anything for me. And then they say, dude, don't you understand the things our contract is how good it is for you? And I'm like, I don't see any of that, dude. I don't see any raises. I don't see any benefits. You just tell me it exists, and I got to give you $30 a month. Get out of my face.
I think there's parallels to what a lot of the establishment politicians have done to American people, right? With the way that they've probably been treated by their union bosses. I would probably say that we'll see probably in the next few days a news cycle about how they're going to try to spin it as like it's sexism now, right? Now that they've put Kamala in there as there's such a precipitous drop in those numbers that it's because she's a woman or some spin on it. But again, I just think that there's such a strong corollary to the 2016 campaign that Trump ran, reversing the old kind of Republican tradition, whether it was free trade, immigration. And I think these people still see him as a fighter in that regard. And I think that's why we all loved him so much in 2016 and why we still love him today.
He's like a working class hero kind of guy. He just took that Republican Party and changed it. Or I guess, yeah, he did. He took what was left over of it after all the big money went up with Obama.
Because he was self-funded, right? He didn't have to, become a political prostitute to the Koch brothers, to all the people who want open borders. But the funny thing is, too, that I think, all those people, right, like the Never Trump wing of the Republican Party, there was just a stunning piece in Politico about 2 weeks ago. And it was how a bunch of Republican members of Congress are busy giving, off-the-record secret interviews to, I think it was Jonathan Martin, talking about how they want Trump to lose because they don't like the direction that he's taking the Republican Party, which is, of course, aligning it with the working class and not the donor interests, right? It makes it harder to get shady, swampy CRs passed. I'm looking at you, Speaker Mike Johnson. But when it comes to that alignment, you see another piece, too. The Huffington Post did a long profile on the Koch brothers, the Koch network, how they're getting ready to rebrand in what they're calling a post-Trump era. And the number one issue is immigration, that they don't like his approach to it, legal and illegal. And I think that's always sort of been the defining issue. And I think, the corollary, when you see what's going on in Springfield, yeah, part of it, you can look at it as, oh, they're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats. But I don't think you have to start the discussion on the negative impacts of mass migration. You don't have to set the goalpost there. And I think people who belong to the Teamsters union are on the significant receiving end of horrible trade and horrible immigration policies, their lived experience in this country because of the policies that Kamala Harris and, frankly, Dick and Liz Cheney, who want to go out and endorse her, so it applies to both sides of the aisle, but they get it and they see the BS that they're trying to spin.
Let's jump to this story from the New York Post. Adding onto the story we saw earlier about the Teamsters refusing to endorse the Democrat, the New York Post reports Michigan union members blame Biden electric vehicle mandates for auto industry layoffs. Quote, want to slit our throats. The auto industry is big business in Michigan, and a major round of layoffs is revving the election into high gear for industry workers in this critical swing state who blame the Biden-Harris administration's heavy-handed electric vehicle mandates for the painful job losses. Stellantis, which manufactures Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge vehicles, announced last month it will lay off 2,450 workers at its Warren plant. While industry jobs in the state have been declining since 1990, Michigan auto workers explained to the Post why Team Biden's green energy rules are at fault this time. United Auto Workers member Isaiah Gordon, 24, works on hybrid batteries at Ford's Rawsonville plant and said the forced transition to electric vehicles is damaging the industry. I'm sure all the people I work with are glad to have jobs. The problem is these electric vehicle departments, you're laying people off. Fellow UAW member Chris Vitale, a technician mechanic for Chrysler, agreed, saying electric cars require considerably less labor to produce than gas-powered vehicles. This is Michigan, key swing state, and union members in Michigan are blaming Biden-Harris for losing jobs. Michigan's already been in a rough state since 1990, as it stated. We all know about the auto industry collapse. I don't know how. You look at the Teamsters, you look at Michigan UAW, and you conclude that Kamala Harris is going to win these places. That being said, shadow campaign, I understand. But in terms of winning the argument, it becomes extremely difficult to believe that in a real world scenario where everybody goes in and casts their ballots, Kamala Harris can win.
I fully agree with that. But I'm just living in terror of the electronic voting machines flipping vote tallies. I just don't know how to combat that tactic.
Or ballot harvesting.
It's interesting, too. Just a few weeks ago, the UK announced that they were assembling a council to combat misinformation about electric vehicles in order to try to boost sales. So I'm sure we'll probably see one of those rolled out here, too. But, I I wish we could have discussions, right, in terms of polling and thinking that it translates quite nicely and squares out, the numbers when it comes to voting. But, the point that Democrats are in such opposition to the SAVE Act, which would, not a very radical proposition, which is that non-citizens shouldn't be allowed to vote. I mean, if that's a non-starter, I think that kind of shows you in really the dangerous territory that we're in. But you already see it in the news cycle, right? The calculated campaigns. I think that USPS letter saying that there's going to be delays. Like I said, I mean, they're buying freaking panic buttons for
the New York Times saying that the election will not be. The New York Times saying we will not know the results on election night.
They're buying panic buttons for election workers down in Georgia and Cobb County because they're saying MAGA, people like this show, we're radicalizing people to make them. My point being, they're even panic buttons. The ridiculousness of the story aside, they're curating a narrative, right? That there's going to be chaos on election day. And frankly, I think the most concerning part, I'm sure you guys are aware. I think you guys covered it, but the idea of the Transition Integrity Project, right? That was part of sort of that Time magazine story back in 2020. But they're back, and they're back with a vengeance. You could argue they never went away, but they sort of have gone a step further than their 2020 plans, and they are talking on record about how they've been reaching out to state and local officials saying that we're trying to get prearranged, predetermined commitments from Republicans and Democrats to sort of, defend democracy and do all these nebulous terms. Who knows what the heck it means? But they're really coming in guns blazing, and you can tell with the level to which they're projecting, right, that it's Republicans who are getting ready to rig and steal the election. They melt down when Trump says the same exact things that they do, but there's, tenfold, 100-fold more evidence on that side of the football than there is on the Democratic side.
How many times do we have to hear Stacey Abrams or Hillary Clinton say the election was taken? And like Elizabeth Warren years ago had a whole letter out there about not trusting, I think it was Dominion machines or whichever
the Democrats were going nuts on voting machines. I think it was 2012 at the Black Hat convention, or DEF CON and Black Hat. They hacked voting machines. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ian. You might know this. That DEF CON, it's a hacker convention. Every year has the election hacking village, meaning like in August you go to Las Vegas. You go to the largest hacker convention in the world. There's two of them, DEF CON and Black Hat. One's corporate, one's kind of just wild. And you go out there and say, where can I learn about hacking voting machines? And they're like, oh, we got a couple hundred people over here doing it right now.
Step right this way.
I'm pretty sure they have the voting hacking village. So they have like lock picking. They have industrial control systems. Dude, it's a wild place. I really do recommend, if you ever have the time to check out DEF CON and Black Hat, you should definitely check it out.
In 2018, it was Pelosi. She commissioned a whole entire report on foreign election interference. And Bob Mueller just today wrote a foreword for a new book, and they're pumping it out in The Guardian, and he's saying that Russia's going to interfere in the 2024 election. But I think the worst thing in all of this is that they keep rolling out. There's a new campaign they just launched with a bunch of former governors. They're, of course, now making all these members of Congress sign what they're calling a unity pledge to say that, no matter what, on January 6th, we're going to sign the election results and we're going to go to the inauguration. They haven't done anything substantive to make elections more secure, right? And it's this sort of interesting psyop where it's like, instead of actually trying to convince you and do the actual groundwork and legwork to secure elections, we're just going to wheel out a bunch of like old politicians and say, you have to trust elections, otherwise you're deranged and crazy, right? And it's a very weird approach. It's the same thing with some, right? If you actually wanted, and that's frankly the issue that I take with this whole Postal Service letter, right, about the mail-in ballots. If you actually took issue with that letter, the answer would be, let's holistically review mail-in ballots. We shouldn't use them. They're rife with fraud. Every country hasn't used them. And when they have, they get rid of it because it doesn't work. But instead, the answer is, no, we're going to double down on needing to use mail-in ballots, even though we're writing you a letter right now about saying how we can't count them.
It's so insecure. People my whole life said, don't mail cash. Don't put cash in the mail and send it because someone will just open up the thing and take it, or who knows what's going to. Don't mail your cash.
Right.
But people are comfortable mailing their ballot.
It's a very important vote. For the most important vote.
One of the most secure things you do politically in your life is
Well, and there's
ensure
reporting
your
today,
ballot.
right, in Arizona that there was sort of, again, mistakes that always seem to go one way. They think they sent out 97,000 ballots or so to people where they weren't necessarily sure if the registration was accurate, if they were citizens or not. Minnesota breaking the same story just 3 days ago. There was a report coming out in Utah today, discrepancies between the number of mail-in ballots sent out to those received in primaries. So there's obviously a problem, but they never want to actually address the systemic issues. Instead, they just want to wheel out these weird old dusty politicians.
Here's Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney says the election's secure.
We like him now, okay?
But this to me, when I see all of this stuff, the corporate press, Dick Cheney, I'm sorry, it's an old, decayed system.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be as mean as I can about it. Sorry, old folks who watch the show. I mean, no disrespect, but it's kind of like watching Tony Hawk skate at 55 or whatever. and Tony's great. He's a great guy, and I don't mean to be mean to him, okay? But one of the most gut-wrenching videos is when you watch Tony Hawk land his last 900. Okay, this is a flying up in the air, spinning 2.5 times and coming down, and he was like 52. He struggles with it because he's getting old. He slams his helmet down and says, my son was here the first time. He's here the last time. That's it. I'll never do this again. And you're watching this legend of the sport walk away. You see, the difference is, we like Tony. Like, we like our athletes. So when they're retiring, it's like, man, sad to see him go. Imagine if Tony decided to say, I'm not going anywhere. I'm the best. You can't kick me out of these sporting events, and started showing up trying to skate against 9-year-olds who are doing 1080s. Okay, maybe a bit too much jargon. The point is, imagine some 57-year-old retired football player was like, I demand to go to the Super Bowl. And you're like, dude, you can't hang. Like, what are you doing? And then he comes in, pulls strings, gets people kicked off teams, tries to get the refs to favor him, to tell everybody how good he is. It's like, dude, we know you can't do this anymore. You could have left. You were the vice president 24 years ago, whatever. Congratulations. But these people coming out now and being like, look, we're all together in this. It's the Trump people that are bad. This is the younger generation, the internet generation, the populist generation saying, you guys have lost the power, sit down and shut up. But they won't go away. Let's put it this way, man. At least in sports, at a certain age, people retire, and they retire young. There's a lot of athletes that's like, oh, the 35, that's it. I'm out. If they make it to 35, 35-year-old in skateboarding is ancient. The top skateboarders are like 15 to 20 years old. So if you're 35, it's like, wow, that's really impressive how old you are and you're able to do these tricks and compete at this level. It would be like watching a bunch of, like I mentioned, 50, 60-year-old football players pulling strings, using money to make sure younger guys couldn't get in. The refs are all the same age. That's what we see with Congress. That's what we see with the Senate. What do they call it? Octogenocracy or whatever?
But the illusion is that there's no physical fitness test. It's just a rich man's game. They're feeding off the backs of the Bank for International Settlements in Switzerland, the Federal Reserve. They know people that are paying them, and they're using their faces and their trusts. There's these companies, these shell companies. Like Dick Cheney's a face for an organization of finance, and they just wheel him in. He says some crap, and then they wheel him out, and then
this is a bit we need to do. If football was like politics, and then it's just like a bunch of 80-year-old players, and there's young guys being like, I'd really like to play this game, and they're just like, you're not allowed to play, and they're spending money to keep out anyone new.
Then at the end of it, it turns out they're actually all on the same team. And
Right. they all go to the same locker room, and they're all patting each other on the butt.
To build on Tim's athlete analogy, though, it's like Tony Hawk was beloved. The media
Still is.
The media tried telling everyone how much they hate Dick Cheney for years and years and years. And now in their desperate throes, they're wheeling this guy out to be like, no, we respect what this guy says because he hates the guy we hate now.
They called him Hitler. They said, so this is the funny thing. When George W. Bush was president, they would hold up signs with him with the Hitler mustache. But then SNL would make fun of him and say he's really stupid. And they would go, Dick Cheney's the real mastermind behind all of these. My Halliburton, right? He's the guy. So he's actually the one running the show. Now they're like, I am honored to have the endorsement of Dick Cheney. Wow, it means a lot to me.
We need the guy who runs the show.
It's also, too, if you pay attention to the MSNBC interviews of all these people, it's the new sort of, I think, psyop, which I'm sure I'll use this word a bunch during the show, but that they're going for the sort of, Lincoln Project Republican type, that vote, by trying to say that it's okay to vote for Kamala in this one election. You're still a patriot. You can still be an American, right? That's the kind of demographic that they're going after. And frankly, I think the through line that you can run it to is why you saw the embrace of patriotism at the DNC, right? The American flags that you've literally never seen before in the DNC, talking about how they love America. You're like, wait, what? Is this the right event? And I think that's the vote that they're really trying to court, but they're going about doing it in this very emotionally driven, like, you can, it's sort of cultish, right? Like, you can still vote for us.
Because it is a cult.
Yeah, it's almost like it is a cult. Yeah.
That's what they do. They struggle session you.
Cult like cult, yeah.
If you want to leave, and they subtly struggle session you if you're in it.
Let's jump to the story from the Post-Millennial. Breaking SAVE Act paired with spending package fails to pass the House. I don't think anyone's going to surprise to hear several Republicans sided with the Democrats to knock this down, because the whole thing is a game. There's very few members of Congress who actually want to do anything. It's a game. We had, I can't remember which rep it was, but it was Freedom Caucus, and he talked about how the Republicans had the votes to overturn Obamacare. And Republican leadership went to him and said, no, vote against getting rid of Obamacare. We need the wedge issue. They never had any intention of overturning any of these things. They didn't care. They say on Wednesday, the SAVE Act, paired with a stopgap government funding package, was voted down 202 ayes, or whatever, to 220 nays. This comes as illegal immigration and border security combined with concerns over voter fraud has been raised in the country. The Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, paired with the stopgap, has been a move that House Speaker Mike Johnson as well as Trump have supported in recent weeks. On Wednesday, the package paired with the SAVE Act did not pass the House. The act would prevent non-citizens from voting by requiring that Americans provide proof of citizenship to register to vote. I'm going to tell you what I think. There is no way that 14 Republicans could get away with breaking from Donald Trump and the Speaker. If Mike Johnson goes to the Republican and says, you're voting this way or you're going to lose your committees, I mean, this is, in my opinion, planned. I would more likely to believe that Mike Johnson comes out publicly and says, we're going to do this. This is what we have to do. Convincing everybody that's the plan. Then he goes to a handful of Republicans, says, just vote with the Democrats so that this doesn't actually go anywhere. We're going to pretend like we care. You guys are in swing districts. You'll pretend to be bipartisan. Siding with the Democrats looks good for your reelection. And then we don't have to actually do it. That's what I think happened.
The Republicans who said no, though, I think are some of the most MAGA ones who did. It wasn't the swing district ones. It was
really?
It was the Boberts. 2 people voted present. That was Massey and Green. But
you're right. It actually is the good ones who voted against it. My bad.
The point is, shame on Speaker Mike Johnson for someone who wants to stand up there and say that the reason that we need to pass the SAVE Act right now, which, by the way, even if you were to pass it, it would come into effect way too late. Mail-in ballots have already started going out. If he cared so much about election integrity, it should have been his first move when he was Speaker. Second of all, if policy writers work, right, attaching bills onto other bills, in this case a CR, then they should have done it with HR 1. Right, low cost energy act, HR 2, actually securing the border. Why didn't they do that on any of the 5 CRs that they've pushed through? And most importantly, Joe Biden has come out and said, hands down, I will veto the SAVE Act. And the Senate said that they would strip it from the CR anyways. So all of the people who voted saying no were on the right side of history, I would argue, because the SAVE Act was going to get stripped from it anyways.
So it wasn't going anywhere in the first place.
It wasn't going anywhere. And the real...
That makes more sense, honestly.
The disgusting part from Speaker Mike Johnson is that they have cheapened the issue of election integrity and cheapened the SAVE Act, which, by the way, we passed in July. It's been sitting in the Senate. They could have held a vote on it. Could have been signed into law by Joe Biden if they actually cared about non-citizens voting, right, in the same breath while they're lecturing us on foreign election interference. But they're dangling it like a shiny toy, a shiny object to try to pressure those 14 members in the Republican Party from a messaging perspective to be able to say, oh, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, right? You don't care about election integrity. You're not voting for the SAVE Act. And frankly, the Trump statement that he put out, I would argue it's the brilliance of Donald Trump, but it can sort of be read both ways because he says, I don't want anything happening. We need to pass the SAVE Act. It's the SAVE Act. He didn't express support for the CR. Right? And the SAVE Act can be passed independently. It is the false promise and pretense that Speaker Johnson said, that is that you have to attach it to the CR. You don't. let alone wanting to fund the same damn government that just almost got President Trump killed again, whether it's the Secret Service or the same DHS that's coming after, or rather busing migrants in, coming after you guys, right? So it's absolutely absurd. And this is more of the BS same that, of course, the War Room is always covering and our audience is always burning down the phone lines, metaphorically. But absolute BS from Mike Johnson.
This is how jaded I am that we often see these like Republicans break and pretend like they're not actually going to get behind what the plan is, because it's all like the Obamacare thing that I mentioned. We had a member of the Freedom Caucus in, but this makes a lot more sense. That's how it's unsurprising if Speaker Johnson wanted to do this. The people who are more likely to break from him are going to be the ones who are more MAGA, and they're going to say, yeah, heck no. I suppose what is the issue then? They don't want, as you mentioned, they were going to strip it anyway.
Biden said he'd veto and the Senate was going to strip it.
But I suppose that's the point anyway. Is the bigger issue that these guys don't want to vote on it? Like Matt Gaetz, he doesn't want to vote on continuing resolutions.
Yeah, that's the point.
Continuing, I think, $2.45 trillion in annual spending, so much so that we'd be paying $3 trillion just to service the debts that are already pre-existing. I think it was a burn rate of $77,000 a second at the rate that they want to put out. Like I said, with no substantive reform for going after any of these agencies, the same agencies that, just 2 days ago, you have Matthew Graves putting out a letter saying that Stephen K. Bannon can't get released from prison early because nothing happened and he just deserves to rot in a federal prison. Yeah, let's make sure we fund his salary. That's what Mike Johnson wants to do. And by the way, it's all performative BS, because Mike Johnson is the same dude who waited, 48 hours until Stephen K. Bannon had to surrender to federal prison. So we did something. Mm-hmm. If these people actually cared, they would have nullified the January 6th subpoenas on day one of Congress. Did they? No. What was the first thing Mike Johnson did? Push for more aid to Ukraine and Israel and Taiwan. So it shows you where their priorities are.
I see no difference between him and a Pelosi. They're all just part of the machine, and they don't care about the people.
They are, to quote someone, listless vessels, right? They are people who are pumped full of cash, whether it's the lobbyists, the donors, whatever foreign country wants them to act however they want. And that's what these CRs are. That's what they purposely do. They don't pass the single subject spending bills. Right? Then you're pushed up against the wall. Then you play the government shutdown politics. And our Republicans are so weak. They're so scared that MSNBC is going to say, oh, well, you're making this poor grandma in West Virginia not be able to eat dinner. Right? They got all the fear porn. And Republicans have no backbone.
Shameful.
It is.
I wish they'd get over
it's disgusting that they would do
yeah.
this to election integrity.
Like fear of bad optics.
If they were to,
I think the bigger issue is that Congress is just dysfunctional. It's not a thing anymore.
if the person, like if Mike Johnson was like, all right, I'm not playing ball anymore. I am now a rusty cog in this machine. I'm stuck. They're just going to either go after his family or his bank account or him personally, I would imagine. Like, what do they do? These people that are essentially being blackmailed.
Well, look at Trump. They'll get you with 100 years of prison sentences, or they'll throw you in prison like Stephen K. Bannon if you dare to stand up, or they'll try to assassinate you twice.
This is like me losing faith in the government in general. And
join the club.
You're just now losing it.
It's like incrementally, point by point, I'm like, well, I guess I can check this piece off now. I mean, it's just I'm reminded of how these people in politics, especially in the House of Representatives, are kind of stuck in a process that if they try and stop, they get friction starts to build around them within the process that needs to keep.
It's intentional. They're the henchmen in the front of the castle.
If it stops, the country goes bankrupt because people start to lose their jobs, and then we get invaded and conquered. I mean, that's the fear, I guess. So you just pump funny money into the system until we conquer the world. I don't know what's the plan.
I think it's very much, for many people, it's like this. You get the job, you run for office, you say, I want to do these things. You get in, and they say, okay, we really like your idea for healthcare reform. If we do that, however, if you knock this peg out right here, it's going to collapse over there. What ends up happening is people go in and they tell you the machine is too big to be moved. You have to make all of the major moves down this very narrow path. And you can only change itty-bitty things every so often, which never actually have a big impact.
You can only pass bills about making sure we can't ban gas stoves.
No, renaming post offices.
Yeah.
Because it takes someone brave to go in and say, I am making this change. You see, Ron Paul, this is why I love the guy. He talked about Afghanistan and Iraq. He said, they tell us that if we withdraw our troops, it'll be a catastrophe. Because we went in, we destabilized government, and now we can't leave with an exit strategy. And he said, no, when you prescribe the wrong medication, you stop it. And that's the reality. So right now, what we have is everybody gets in office and they're told, if you don't adhere to this rigid structure, everything will collapse. It takes someone who's going to be brave to say, you know what? Maybe I'll be a one-term president. I'm going to make some changes that are going to result in some harsh realities for many Americans, but will be a better long-term solution. And they do it. I think Donald Trump is more likely to do that because he's headstrong than Kamala Harris, who's a cog in the machine.
We need like ingenuity in Congress, and I don't know what the difference between ingenuity and genius. We just need someone that's able to transform our fuel economy. We need hydrogen gasoline hybrids, but you need to convince people as well. You need to be very charismatic because the oil and gas industry has to understand they're going to end up making more money on this transfer when we start turning their coal and oil into graphene. We're going to be pumping more of it, and then we're going to be having hydrogen, so fuel will be cheaper for people. If you can do that, then it doesn't matter if we print $3 trillion more, because it's really like putting a $30 billion debt in the total GDP, because the value will be greatly enhanced because things are so much cheaper due to the fuel resurgence.
What I love about Ian is that he keeps trying desperately to pitch like these energy solutions to people who have no interest whatsoever in fixing anything.
You know, my role at Mines was
Trump
director
always
of
says,
energy.
drill, baby, drill.
Yeah, drill, baby, drill. But also we can turn a lot of that stuff that we drill into graphene and hydrogen. And then,
Ian, let me tell you what's going on, right? You come on the show and you say, we've got graphene, it's a revolutionary material. It's a super, it can, batteries charge faster. We can make stronger materials, carbon fibers, all these amazing things. We've got hydrogen energy. Meanwhile, the politicians are sitting there with their pen and paper and they're writing it down. And they're going, oh, that's really, really brilliant, Ian. That's so great. And then they say, thank you so much for telling me all that. I've taken all the notes that I need. And then when they get it to leave, you notice they were drawing pictures of cats the whole time.
I think it's that they don't have the cognitive facilities to understand it, or that
it's that
then they get bored.
Here's what happens. A guy gets in office and he's like, man, this Ian guy really convinced me on hydrogen and graphene, this new energy, these new energies that are going to, invigorate the American economy and help us break oil dependence. They get in office and then everyone around them says, yeah, we're going to lose 10,000 jobs in the oil industry if you start implementing these plans, and you'll never get elected again.
That's the problem. We don't want to make the oil industry suffer. I don't want to strip anything away from the coal and oil. I want to enhance their ability to create.
I get it.
So we'll, instead of using it for petroleum, we'll be using it for graphene. So we'll be using more oil. We need to drill more. We need to dig more coal out of the ground and upscale it into graphene with flash joule heating. You hit it with electricity at 7,000 degrees at 0.1
Then they'll
milliseconds.
hit you with the NAACP and they'll say that you're hurting minority communities by doing that. And some other
No. It's
I mean,
really,
you can balance
Ian,
it out. You don't have to drill more.
No, I'm
much,
not
much
saying it
simpler than
does,
all of this. There's no point in you explaining how you want to help oil and drill more oil, because the politician's going to go like this. Once you say it, they're going to say, thank you, Ian. They're going to look at their aide and say, I have no idea what he's talking about. I have a fundraising call in 1 hour. Take care of it.
That's why we need more ingenuity in Congress in general. We need
higher
really,
IQ.
yeah, like scientists. We need scientists to run for office.
You don't understand. They have to fundraise to win their elections. They have
need
to cut
rich,
checks.
charismatic scientists. How many of them are there? We need them all right now.
Yeah,
Asim
great.
Harriman,
Elon Musk.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who else is
I don't know
there?
that Neil deGrasse
Tyson.
Tyson is wealthy enough nor smart
away.
enough.
Keep
him away.
Bill Nye. We need Bill Nye involved.
Keep
in
him
this.
away too,
No,
Ian.
he's not a scientist.
Look, you need a coalition, man.
He's not a scientist.
Bring back Dr.
He's an engineer.
Fauci.
Those guys are like
He's a mechanical
Marxist fools.
engineer.
Yeah, but we need engineers.
Dolph Lundgren reportedly has more degrees, science
We
degrees.
need Dolph
than-
Lundgren. Good. Bring him in.
Speaking
That I
of
agree with, that I
spooky
agree with.
scientists, Francis Collins was on MSNBC this morning, and he said we need to inoculate people against misinformation preemptively.
Oh boy,
that's an actual
Are there
quote.
boosters for that too? Then great.
Yeah, it's like,
Awesome.
That mean?
bro, the vaccines have gone to your brain.
Yeah, they will try that.
That's the solution to all this bankruptcy fear is better fuel systems.
I also think you're gonna have a hard time convincing the public right now of anything change like that, because I think a lot of people are so anti-change in that degree, because it sounds to a lot of people like Green New Deal-ish, and they're so against it right now because it takes away, they think, so much of what we have or had, which is why a lot of people go to Trump, because he's like, we got to bring that back. So you got to find a way to have them convince them. But then, like Tim's saying, the politicians don't care to convince anybody, because it's going to hurt the vote.
They're spending most of their time fundraising. That's the reality of it. I mean, Matt Gaetz comes and tells us this stuff, that the politicians will sit there and listen, thank you for your time. And then once you walk out the door, they pick up the phone and say, I need money. They're spending all their time fundraising so they can run for re-election again.
Yeah.
They don't want, look, when Marjorie Taylor Greene talks about how they don't actually show up to vote. Remember when she was like, she sits down and she sees like 4 Democrats over here, 4 Republicans, and some guy who's not the speaker is just like, we got a bill that says this. And then 4 of the Republicans go, and the Democrats go, and they go, it passes, I guess, bang. And that's what Congress is. Because all of the members are actually on the phone fundraising, pretending to do work. These are people, in my opinion, overwhelmingly they lack merit. They could not make a mark themselves. So they said, I know, if I get elected to Congress, then my name will get recorded in the annals of history. That's how they want to make their mark instead of being great. A lot of them made money and said, okay, now I can get attention and notoriety and be famous. And then there are a lot of people that rank and file members of Congress you've never heard of. You don't even know their name and they do nothing. Literally, I don't even know what they're doing there in the first place. And you have a tiny handful of members of Congress. I think there's probably like Ro Khanna, I like, he's a Democrat. I don't agree with him, but I like him. And then you've got maybe like, 10 or 12 Republicans. And the rest of Congress is a bunch of garbled trash.
It's a dysfunctional cafeteria of fools.
They want to still get invited to the cocktail parties and go to the functions at Capitol Grill. And, you don't get that if, MSNBC's speaking about you saying you're an election denier.
You work for 2 years, you get the security credentials, you leave, you get hired as a lobbyist for $400,000 a year, and then you go back and work on the Hill, eating fancy steak dinners for the rest of your days, saying, look, my company wants to drill, baby, drill, so we're going to come in and we're going to talk to the member of Congress and tell them what we want them to do, and I'm going to be a lobbyist for the rest of my days.
Gross.
Let's jump to this next story from SCNR. California bans AI-generated political deepfakes ahead of 2024 election. This news broke last night. We talked about it on the members show. So become a member at timcast.com for more breaking news segments. And you can call into the show as a member. So this is basically, it's the banning of memes. Here's the important thing. They passed a couple of bills. They're largely about legal remedies for voter registration and certification issues. However, attached to them is this civil and criminal penalty or prohibitions on AI-generated content that could be deceptive pertaining to celebrities or politicians. I think the reason they're doing this angle about, AI-generated videos are going to be prohibited is because they don't want people to realize the bill is actually about legal remedies over voter registration and certification. Certification being a big deal. What happens if California refuses to certify or does certify, or if people who are in California refuse to certify? That's going to be in that law as well. Now, back to the memes. It says, as long as when you make the video, you write this blank was made for the purpose of satire or parody, then it is exempt. Yeah, right.
Yeah, it needs a watermark on the video.
Nope.
I don't know how you're going to do it with audio, though.
Nope. Ian, you are incorrect. Now, they're claiming that, but I'm going to tell you exactly why that's not going to be the reality here. First, this bill comes because Elon Musk shared a meme where Kamala Harris is speaking, just her voice, with random clips of Kamala and Biden, and she's saying, I'm a diversity hire, Joe Biden is a deep state puppet. And he said that should be illegal. Well, clearly it wasn't Kamala Harris. But the bill says as long as you market satire or parody, right? Okay, tell me this. If you were to make a video of Kamala Harris speaking using AI that looked like she was speaking, and in no way does it look fake, and she says in the video, when I get elected, the first thing I want to do is pay for school loans for young people by cutting Social Security. We'll take Social Security revenue and funding and use it to pay off the Social Security loan so that young people can have a chance. And then you have it say, I'm Kamala Harris and I approve this message. And in the last 2 seconds of it, it says on the bottom with a black border and white text, this video is parody and not to be intended to be real. Do you think that if someone made that video, Gavin Newsom's going to be like, we're going to allow that? Or do you think he's going to be like, we don't care, you're under arrest? Or you're being sued or you're being shut down?
I think it needs to watermark the entire video personally, because if someone gets in there for 3 seconds and sees it, they need to know that that's a parody.
Even if. So in the bottom of political ads, it says this is paid for by the whatever for campaign PAC, right? There's legal requirements for disclosure. This video is paid for by Harris for president. If you put that black bar at the bottom saying this video is paid for by Ian Crossland for parody purposes only, they're not going to cut you slack. They're going to say, nope, it was a deceptive ad. It wasn't parody. You only put that there so you can manipulate people and you're trying to exploit the law. They will interpret it in whatever way they want. And my example is Douglas Mackey shared a meme about texting to vote to Trump supporters that he did not make. Someone else made it. He thought it was funny. He shared it. He got convicted for it. They're going to claim whatever they want. And so when Elon Musk shares a video of Kamala Harris saying she's a diversity hire and Biden's a deep state puppet, who's going to believe that's real? And he says that should be illegal. You know they're not going to stop at parody and satire. And the biggest point of all, if I do an impeccable impersonation of Donald Trump, so much so that you see a video of me saying, I'm Donald Trump and I want to gut Social Security tomorrow night. And they're going to be like, I don't know, that sounds just like Donald Trump, so that's illegal now. That's it. Ridiculous.
Well,
you can't do that.
It's when it's complete, indiscernible impersonation. So like if someone created an AI generated video of Donald Trump stabbing a guy to death and it looks like him, and then MSNBC runs the video and you get 100 million people that truly believe it's a real thing, and then the courts might even believe it's real. Like we need to know ahead of time if that was generated by artificial intelligence. It can become indiscernible completely, literally.
I agree, but the point is, someone will make a video of Donald Trump wearing a do-rag playing basketball, and they're going to write parody on it, and Gavin Newsom in California is going to say, it wasn't written large enough, or it didn't explain parody in enough detail. My point is this. The bill says as long as you label it, this video was made for the purpose of satire or parody, then it's exempt. If you made a video that was Kamala Harris saying she wanted to cut Social Security, and I approve this message, and at the bottom it says parody, they are still going to treat that as though you didn't because it's so shockingly, like, they're going to say, no, that wasn't a joke. That's you making a fake video of Harris attacking Social Security.
So you think that they're going to violate their own standards?
They always do.
Wait, hold on.
Sometimes they do.
What do you mean by violate their own standards?
Like, you think this is a slippery slope mechanism where it's going to say you have to have this thing on the video,
Ian,
and so one day someone's going to do it and they'll be like, you know what? We're just going to say that video.
Did you know that police arrest people for resisting arrest?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't seem to make sense now, does it?
It's in like an extra charge you get. Yeah.
No. You can be charged solely for
you get resisting.
No.
I don't know. Resisting detainment.
You can be walking down the street and the police will say stop and you'll say, I have no reason to. And they literally charge people with the sole crime of resisting arrest.
I didn't know that. Okay.
That's right. Because the government just makes up whatever they want. What is define disorderly conduct?
Oh, geez.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yelling out at 11:30 at night.
For a CR.
Honking. So in Chicago, you can get a ticket for improper use of horn. I had a friend who pulled up his car to his friend's house in front of a park, and he honked the horn. Friend comes running out, and the cop that was at the park walked over and gave him a ticket for improper use of horn.
There are reasons for that, because if you live there and every 20 minutes you hear people honking outside, it's like noise pollution. So, but those things can spin out of control.
What if
I
that
see what you're
honk
saying.
saved someone's life? That
would
one
have been
honk, and that person got the ticket.
Maybe they wouldn't get. Hopefully they wouldn't.
And the argument from the cop was that the purpose of the horn is to alert someone when something is happening. What are you talking about? People honk at each other all the time.
There's a place in New York like that too, because it's just so high traffic.
Yes, New York has the quiet zones.
The selective application, and I think as someone who is Steve Bannon's co-host, I understand how the contempt of Congress charge is selectively applied, and it only seems to people like Peter Navarro and Stephen K. Bannon. But I also feel like this Newsom law is sort of the outcrop or the logical extension of what is, I think, and has always been a very insulting premise, which is the idea that Americans are so dumb that in 2016, a couple of Russian articles, swayed who they voted for, right? That's the only reason that you could only support Trump was if you were bombarded with, a Cambridge Analytica type, convergence of misinformation, Russian misinformation at that. And I think this is sort of the same thing. I know with the AI, it's a little more precarious. There are videos, they do look very real. But I think, again, it's just sort of insulting to the intelligence of people that you can't discern what is a joke and what is not, and that your political views and values are so finicky that they could be swayed, right, by some AI video. And I think, too, the other angle of this that I also find interesting, which, again, I know it's not really a novel thing, but like the idea of who gets to decide what misinformation is, right? And what is accurate and what isn't. And I think it's funny because when Putin, 2 weeks ago, comes out and, says, oh, I love Kamala's laugh and I'm voting for her. It's like, okay, he said that. He was literal in saying that. But the mainstream media, they said, oh, he was joking. It's like, maybe he was, but you guys don't know that, right? So it's just interesting how they can draw color or just be a little more nuanced or subtle in the way that they look at certain clips when it doesn't work to their advantage. Or I would draw the distinction too when you're talking about the Springfield bomb threats, 33 of 33 ended up being hoaxes. they always called those bomb threats and gave it 24/7 air coverage. But whenever it's an assassination attempt on President Trump, it's alleged.
An incident.
Right, an incident, right? So the way that they play with the words, it's very interesting. And I think any more power in the hands of Governor Gavin Newsom is really bad, let alone
They keep moving
AI.
the goalposts with all this stuff. They mean nothing. They have no moral center. And I think with the Antimeme Bill, it's like, don't imprison me because you're ignorant and humorless. But the AI stuff I get, because that's scary. But I still think it's on the reporters and the people for misinterpreting. I don't think we should be labeling things because we don't know who everyone. It's all subjective now. You can't say this is parody. This is
Isn't
not.
that also democracy?
Someone made a fake P-tape where there's a camera at a low angle and someone who looks like Trump sitting in a chair while a woman's on a bed. And this was presumably made with the intention of tricking people into thinking Donald Trump actually did the P-tape.
Yeah.
Well, what? It's just I'm concerned
allowed
about
to do
AI
parody and
replication. It's different than parody. Parody, it's like, okay, that's a parody of the
No,
thing.
you don't.
It's Alex Stein in a wig. It's parody. But absolute replication, you would call that impersonation, is illegal under the law. So if you're going to impersonate someone with an artificial,
no, it isn't.
certain forms of
Impersonating a law
like you go to
enforcement
the
officer.
bank,
Yeah, there forms of impersonation. If you're impersonating a
fraud.
politician with AI and you're saying like missiles have been fired, we are under attack, like these kind of things can happen real fast, and it might even be like if the Saudi Arabian government makes a deepfake of the president saying that they fired missiles, Gavin Newsom can't stop them. If someone shares it, now that bill specifically says if you know you're sharing misinformation, if you know that it's an AI thing and you're sharing it, if you don't know and you do it, you're not going to be held under this. I don't know how they're going to figure out if you knew or not. I don't know how they're
define know. How do
They're
they
going
define
to
misinformation?
know, but that's what it says in the bill.
They're going to have
Right.
to define AI as well.
Yeah.
Good luck defining what constitutes an AI generated image or video. They're gonna write procedurally generated videos meant to imitate real, like it's gonna be weird garbled jargon, which is gonna have loopholes built into it.
And like
People are going-
someone's going to build an AI that builds AI that replicate people.
No, they're gonna.
And so
people
like,
are
hey,
going
my hands are off it. I didn't tell the AI to do that.
Like designer drugs, they're going to say, "What did you make illegal? Okay, we're gonna make something that slightly doesn't fit the definition of that." They're gonna say, okay, it's not AI generated if you speak the words yourself and you use a pitch shifter to make you sound like a person. That's not AI. That's pitch shift.
How does it work? I haven't really familiarized myself with the bill all that much, but I feel like, since the new narrative is that the number one threat, we're in a state of national emergency because of foreign election interference. Does this apply just to domestic content? But what about stuff that's originating overseas? How do you hold those people accountable?
What they're going. I mean, and that's you can't.
Yeah.
Like Iran.
I feel
could
like
make
most
a video
videos
of
to
Kamala.
originate, like there was the weird one of like the black guys like beating up that white chick, didn't it? I think it originated from Russia. No.
That's what the reporting is now. That video.
Yeah,
And you always
so-
got to. And this one's obvious too because you couldn't see anybody's faces. Whenever you can't see a person's face in a video, just don't trust it.
Foreigners also suck at propaganda and deepfakes. I feel like that just has to be said. You can always tell. Like it's.
I don't
People
think you
were
can
sharing that video
anymore.
like crazy.
The thing
Yeah,
about
it's a video of two black men kicking a white girl, and you can't see their faces, and she's covering her face, and you got to ask yourself, why are they filming this? Who is this person? And the story that was being put out was that a woman was going to a Trump rally, and some black men attacked her, and it's like, yeah, that's not real.
Yeah. They said it was
Because you
MAGA
didn't-
country.
You're talking
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like
A reverse Jussie Smollett.
Synthetic replication on every level should be labeled at any possible juncture. If you meet like a synthetic human, they should have to tell you that they're not a real human.
Wait, does this mean like Instagram models are going to have to disclose that they've edited in
They have
Facetune?
Botox.
You are all filter.
I don't know, but I'm really concerned with artificial intelligence replication because it's becoming indiscernible from
Look, I
reality.
detest AI. I don't use it. I don't like it, but I also don't like regulation. And I think it's going to come down to people having to understand how to just live with it now. 'Cause there's no getting rid of it.
There's no understanding the difference.
no getting rid of it.
It's going to be completely
the
indiscernible
issue is that-
to the human brain. It's like
I think it's fair to say none of this is actually AI, and that's the issue about defining AI. We used to say artificial intelligence, and then when people played video games and the enemy soldiers would run around, they'd say it's AI.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's the NPC behavior model. AI was meant as artificial intelligence, quite literally meaning an entity of some sort of computer that you could not discern between a human or the computer. We now call that artificial general intelligence. AI generated. This is just algorithmically generated video.
That's a good point.
Procedurally
yeah,
generated.
you might have
videos.
procedurally generated video that's indiscernible as well. So it doesn't really matter if an
this
AI
is-
did it or if
no.
if it was just
There is no
done by a
AI right
machine.
now. There's no AI. We just use AI to refer to procedural generation.
Well, people use programs like Suno or like...
It's not AI.
What is it?
So artificial intelligence would be indiscernible from a human being. Intelligence that was created by man. Suno is not intelligent. It's procedurally generated music. Mid-Journey and ChatGPT and Grok making photos, it's procedurally generated imagery.
So you're saying ChatGPT is not AI?
We colloquially refer to these things as artificial intelligence, but it's a search engine. It's an algorithmic, a procedural search engine. AI was supposed to mean you'd say, "How are you doing?" and you'd have a robot in front of you and being like, "I feel quite good today, Ian. How was your day?" And you'd talk to it, and the way it's supposed to be, artificial intelligence, was originally meant to refer to something indiscernible from a human being, like Data from Star Trek. Like it walks around, it talks, or the computer talks to you, and you're like, "Is this a person or not? I can't tell." We now call that AGI. And we're referring to, look, how is it artificial intelligence to make a photo of something?
I don't know. Suno represents itself as AI. It says it's a generative artificial intelligence music creation program.
And they're using artificial intelligence because it sells and gets money for them from startups. But artificial intelligence was supposed to be like a reference to human intelligence, but artificially created. Like not it can compile a bunch of songs and then create a facsimile.
Like what you're saying is AI, the way we think of it, should be separate of humans. It's not feeding off us, like leeching off us, like ChatGPT.
No.
Midjourney is.
AI can do all that. The point is, go way back in time, and people used to say that Facebook's algorithm was AI. And it's like, no, it's an algorithm.
Right.
It's just if this, then that. And artificial general intelligence was supposed to represent the point at which something became independent and aware and capable of communication that was indiscernible from another human being. Now we say, I tell a computer program to draw a picture of a dog, and we're like, it's intelligent. No, it's not. It's a computer algorithm that aligns dots based on other dots it's seen. We call that AI now. That's my point. My point is, we've begun to call everything artificial intelligence, despite the fact a generative image program doesn't communicate anything. When we say make a picture of Kamala Harris doing a backflip, all it's doing is looking through a massive database of photographs, connecting the text from those photos to the images, and then doing a rapid interpretation of what is most likely to be Kamala Harris doing a backflip.
Yeah, Midjourney also calls itself a generative artificial intelligence program. So you might be right that
maybe
these
the
are
generative is the doing heavy lifting in that, as in
right.
It's using all the things we've already done on the internet to then make this thing.
To your point, it doesn't need to be AI to be an absolute replication of a person, like an impersonation. So
real quick, you made a good point about it should be able to produce something without leeching off of us. And I think the way to describe that is, I don't believe AI can come up with new ideas. Like Grok, ChatGPT, these things aren't going to say, there's not going to be a point where you go, "Hey, Grok, what you doing?" There's no point which Grok is going to say, like right now, "You know what? I was just thinking about something. Did you ever notice that like the sun and the moon are the same size when you look at the sky? Isn't that weird that the distance is perfect?" It's never going to come and theorize something like, I was thinking about how people talk about ghosts, and I was thinking about multidimensional theory and how time could be a spatial dimension that you could interpret as a spatial dimension. So maybe ghosts are just beings that can move in the fifth dimension. And so when they pass through the fourth dimension, we see these fleeting images. AI is not going to do that.
Or you don't think AI will ever start thinking about you? It'll just be sitting around. It'll be like, I got to call Tim. Oh, AGI will be like, I wonder what he's up to.
And my point
Give
is,
you a ring on the phone.
Artificial intelligence was supposed to be a reference to the point at which a computer program created by man would theorize and imagine and create. And be indiscernible from a human being. Now, look, my point is this. When you think of the word artificial intelligence, why do we imagine Photoshop? No, for real, you go into Photoshop and you circle an area and then click a button and then it will like fill that area in, and they call that AI. It's like...
Isn't this kind of the debate with the Rittenhouse trial when they blew up the picture and they were saying this is artificially enhanced? And they were like
computer-generated imagery.
About what this meant and how if we could even trust the
CGI.
image.
I mean, that's CGI.
It's really just Gavin Newsom being mad that the left can't meme, so they had to codify it in legislation.
It's now illegal to laugh in California. Sorry.
Let's move on from the AI talk, though, because I don't want to go in circles, and we'll talk about other terrifying technology in the nightmare dystopia. Israel detonates Hezbollah walkie-talkies a day after pager attack. So this morning, I was reporting on the aftermath of the pager explosions. For those that aren't familiar, 2,800 injuries, some estimates of around 4,000 Hezbollah pagers exploded all over the country. And in the middle of talking about the updates, and it was now confirmed that Israel did it, numerous reports saying Israel did it, someone super chats, walkie-talkies are exploding right now. The news reporting is, after the pagers blow up, their radios start blowing up. Just think about what this means. They're saying right now 14 people were killed and 450 were wounded. How did they trigger the walkie-talkies now? This means if you're Hezbollah, your radios, your phones, your TVs, your cars, nothing is safe.
I mean, if you're a human, your TVs, your radios, your cars.
No, this is all Hezbollah.
No one is. That's what they did yesterday. But
and the walkie-talkies were also
that all the other devices aren't ready to blow. Like, there's no. Can you verify one way or the other? I can't.
Oh no, I think anyone can hack this now. I mean,
well, these weren't hacked; these were tampered with, and explosives were planted in them.
Right.
So if you've got pagers, which only Hezbollah was using, citizens weren't really using them, though there are reports that they would hand them off to other people. The argument from others is that so there are reports that some civilians had these pagers. Other people just say that's a lie. They're just Hezbollah. Like, why would Hezbollah go give a random civilian one of their pagers? Doesn't make sense. Why would Hezbollah be trying to communicate with a random civilian unless that civilian is aiding and abetting Hezbollah or whatever? The point is, largely Hezbollah. No, but the one thing I will say, if you are a regular civilian citizen in Lebanon, no more crowded gatherings. There's a video of people like dancing to music outside, and then one guy just blows up.
Oh man!
His walkie-talkie explodes, and
then
he
what
falls to the ground.
Israeli government will justify and be like, "Well, they must have gotten that from someone connected to Hezbollah, so they deserve to get blown up."
No, the walkie-talkies,
terrorism,
the walkie-talkies are Hezbollah. The pagers, I can argue, like they might give those out for some reason.
Yeah,
but the walkie-talkies are military purpose
for now. But until they give a pack of 6 of them to a couple families that need to communicate because the phone lines have been cut.
Why would the phone lines have been cut?
I don't know, because a bomb dropped somewhere. I don't know what the situation is.
How often have U.S. soldiers handed you a walkie-talkie?
Well, they handed the Taliban about $86 billion worth of equipment.
If the U.S. military surrendered all that equipment and all of it was laced with explosives, we'd be having a very, very, very different conversation.
Yeah, that's not a bad war tactic.
But we're talking about civilians, and so the issue is, for one, this means nothing to me. We're talking about war between Israel and Lebanon, Lebanon firing missiles into Israel nonstop for decades and ramping up in recent time, Israel engaging in what some estimate a year-long operation to intercept and plant explosives in Hezbollah equipment. Now there's collateral damage. Look, make all the arguments you want. Hezbollah fires a rocket into a civilian area, civilians die. Israel detonates a pager in a civilian area, civilian gets injured, civilians gets injured. There's a report of, I think, 1 civilian death over the pagers. The reporting that I've seen so far is that 12 civilians are reported dead by Lebanon, but Hezbollah says 11 of our soldiers died, as if to indicate 11 of the 12 civilians were actually Hezbollah, and there's 1 civilian death.
I think some of those walkie-talkies exploded at a funeral for someone who died with the pager.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. Think about it. The pagers all blow up. Hezbollah then says, get rid of the pagers, get the walkie-talkies. They grab the walkie-talkie and it explodes. And now they're going to be like, we have no means of communication. What do you do? I mean, this is crazy what we're looking at in terms of warfare.
It's crazy. I mean, thinking about what Ian, what you were saying in the beginning about how it could be anyone, anywhere, anytime. Like, I know you're saying it was planted stuff, but I also think it can be hacked. And it made me think of, to bring up our friend Dick Cheney again, back in the day, when he was vice president, he was worried that they were going to hack his pacemaker and get him that way. So like this is fears that have been boiling, with these people for a long time.
Yeah, modern war, they call it, the unexpected.
They can get you with anything. They got satellites in the sky circling you like giant vultures that can map everything you do, and they can tap right into your phone at any point. With Pegasus is another Israeli spyware device that can crack any phone open. That I think all the Five Eyes have across the world. Good stuff. Everyone should be very happy.
Matt, it's nuts to think that it
the crazy thing about this,
pre-plan explosives in your digital devices so you follow them, so you're forced to do what they say.
Yeah,
it's nuts.
Yeah, what they're going to do.
What would you do right now if an alert went on all phones? They do the presidential alert, and it said these phones may have been tampered with and could explode. Dispose of them immediately.
We throw them in the trap door you built right here.
But in all seriousness,
it would probably bankrupt the company that made them. If the law was still being followed, because everyone would want to return their phone and
spend
$2,000 on this.
Every person's going to ditch the phone.
Yeah.
And
it
then
could be,
what do you
that could be, it
communicate
could be a
with?
fake notice too. Like what
right.
an act of terrorism to sow confusion in a nation.
Absolutely.
Well, just the knowledge of this happening now is going to be a psychological effect on everybody, everywhere. You know,
But you know, it's good that it's public. It's good that we know that it's a possibility now.
Think about what would happen if a totalitarian government decided to secretly implant small explosives in all these devices. We can't open the backs anymore. Remember, you could pop the back off your phone and change the battery. You can't do that anymore. Imagine you're a dissident. Let's say you're a dissident, but you're not like a extremist or anything. You're just, you're a personality. You talk. The government can't stand you. You're a rival politician. And then one day you're driving at a high rate of speed. They're tracking your device. They can see. And they detonate the device. And it pops. You lose control of the vehicle. You're going 80 miles an hour. You fly off the side of a bridge into the water, and you're dead. And they say it was a car accident.
Especially phones, man, because you hold them next to your head.
who was the guy?
It was a movie. Remember that? What was a movie where the guy takes the phone to his ear and then it blows up in his...
Earbuds, dude. You know how many earbuds there are that have little nano explosives in these freaking things?
Tim,
they put them inside your ears.
Who was the guy in the car that they made speed up? Remember he went really fast as a journalist or someone?
We don't know if that's true, but that was Michael Hastings.
They said the story.
The story with
Possibly.
Hastings is that he went to his neighbor's house one day complaining that he saw someone tampering with his vehicle and needed to borrow their car. And they said no. Then he was speeding 70 or 80 miles an hour down Wilshire Boulevard in
3
LA.
in the morning after he got hammered, I think, too. He was out.
I don't know if we know anything about being
I don't know
hammered.
if he was drunk or not, but he was out real late.
I don't think that's part of the story. The story was that he was going 70, 80 miles an hour
imagine
down
he was
Wilshire and crashed into a tree and the car exploded and he died.
He kept saying, they're trying to kill me, they're going to kill me. And then that night...
He was working on a story about some general, I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I forget.
And he was paranoid. He saw somebody under his car, and then his car crashed. And his family says, no, it's not the case. He was troubled, and that's it.
Like those are situations where someone gets to your device and then tampers it. But like if they're getting tampered in the factory, maybe we need oversight. Maybe we need some way to inspect these things.
That's why I'm so against electric cars. I love them, and I like looking at the Cybertruck. I think it's really cool to look at. But there were stories about, or maybe it was just like theories, but I think it's possible. The repo man can just remotely, take your car back. If it's electric, just return to me with his phone.
So like Geneva Convention, that we set it up so that people don't gas each other in war. We try and keep war humane. This like earbud explosives sounds like kind of like maybe we should have some sort of regulation on these things. So not that the dirtiest evil won't just ignore them, but the whole point is the dirtiest evil fails and everyone else can rally around to stop them. So if someone's unwilling to disclose their technology to their allies and be like, just so your citizens know, here's how you verify that it's safe. Problem with that is then the enemy can verify that theirs are safe or not.
There's no secrets. I mean, they're all listening.
Instead
to
of the hundreds of billions of dollars that we gave to Ukraine on tanks and missiles and planes, you're telling me we could have just used pagers? I do think it's interesting, though, obviously, the debate now about the use of long-range missiles in Ukraine. It seems like yesterday with this like fifth-generation form of warfare, though I'd argue in Washington, D.C., I think maybe it's not exploding pager devices, but they certainly know how to detonate politicians that are on the foreign payroll when they want them to vote a certain way on a bill. I think you saw that today.
That's crazy.
What bill?
The CR.
The CR today.
Act.
It's crazy to think about the long-range missiles. That was just the other day, and time is accelerating.
By the way,
which I don't
also
understand
super weird
anymore.
thing on the whole long-range missile thing. Again, not to go full conspiracy theorist,
Please
but
do.
hypothetically, no. I do think it is weird that the shooter, like Mr. Ukraine, right? He comes the same time that you see NATO starting their push for the use of long-range missiles in Ukraine. Just an interesting.
I don't believe in coincidences.
No conspiracies, no coincidences, but very interesting that a guy who is, starring in Azov Battalion ads that are funded by Joe Biden, a guy who says, military conscript letters for the Ukrainian International Legion on his Facebook, pops up. There's always an interesting
I heard he was a Republican.
What's the long range?
despite the 19 Democratic donations.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of RimWorld lately, so I haven't been studying these long-range ballistics.
Every time
I
hear that,
I was coaching Ian on some video games before the show that I used to play, and he didn't know any of them.
Follow me on X and YouTube and Twitch, and we will game hard
But
later tonight, actually.
They want Zelensky to be able to use, sort of at an unprecedented, they've never done it before, longer range missiles to be able to strike more into the interior of Russia,
Oh my God.
which would really escalate, obviously, the conflict there. So there's a lot of back and forth. Blinken was just over in Ukraine with the UK. There were sort of a joint visit there, trying to get them to approve the use of it. NATO is saying, oh, we want every member country to be able to decide by themselves. But now they're sort of saying that it's playing into politics because they know if Joe Biden green lights it, that Americans probably wouldn't like that because it's obviously going to escalate the conflict there. But it's NATO being NATO.
Is Joe Biden just an empty vessel to get us to World War III for Kamala Harris?
A listless vessel,
Listless vessel, yeah. That's insane.
Putin was saying that Russia has hypersonic missiles that can't be shot down in 2019. I think he was boasting about that. He's like, dude, people don't even understand what they're messing with. Nuclear weapons are old school. These things come straight down, too. I mean,
Well, when you
hypersonic missiles are close to the Earth. And so what makes them dangerous is that radar doesn't detect them fast enough. So traditional ICBMs go high. And then the way you can imagine it is you have the Earth and the curvature. So when you're blasting radar and looking for these things, the missiles that go up, they get caught in the radar. We can see it coming. Hypersonics are actually slower, but they're so close to the Earth that our radar detection, it goes underneath it. By the time we detect it, it's too late, and bam!
And like one of those things 700 miles off the coast of D.C. from a Russian nuclear submarine comes up and then just parallels to the water.
This is the tsunami bomb. Russia supposedly has what's called a tsunami bomb, where they detonate a nuke in a coastal area by a city, causing a massive wave to slam into the city, causing tens of millions of damage.
I got to imagine the Russians, nobody in that country wants the world to go to that place. But, they say there's this phrase, backed into a corner, when someone's backed into a corner, and a lot of animals will fight just the most viciously they've ever fought if they're backed into a corner.
Rabbits.
Yeah, a lot of things. Wolverines, all sorts of terrifying animals, and humans too sometimes.
The story goes like this. There was this is an old story. It probably happens a lot, but I remember reading this story like 20 years ago. It was two guys in Texas. Guy gets rear-ended. The guy who gets rear-ended is pissed off, gets out of his car. He's hit. Not a lot of damage. He gets out screaming and yelling, and he's strapped. He's got his open carry. The other guy gets out of his car and sees the guy getting out of his car, walking towards him, screaming in anger, and he puts his hand on his side and holds his hand up. The other dude sees him going towards his gun, and he grabs his gun and pulls it out. The other guy sees him pulling the gun out. They're both pointing the guns at each other, and one guy gets shot. And so the situation was described as the first guy was just being like, hey, man, get away from me. You're crazy. And he was putting his hand near his hip, not to draw the weapon, but to be like ready in case the other guy did. The other guy saw him move his hand towards his gun and thought this guy's going to pull his gun out. So he pulls his gun out. The other guy see him draws his weapon. So he raises his. The other guy raises his. And then one guy gets shot.
So when Putin was saying that he's happy, he wants Kamala Harris to win the presidency, he's like, oh, I love her laugh. I mean, I think he was joking too, and that gives me hope. He's not angry. He's not the guy screaming in rage for getting rear-ended. He's at least calm and collected about this situation, even though he's probably super concerned about it escalating. But are there people behind the scenes that are just like, ah! or is it more just like, let's just set off some nuclear devastation and reap the benefits? We'll go in there with
the
our
reality is it's all of it. There are people I met during Occupy Wall Street who quite literally said their purpose was to watch the world burn. And it's not an exaggeration, and I'm not being cute, and I'm not being mean. I quite literally was sitting in a room full of a bunch of people who were at Occupy. Some of them were journalists, and a journalist told me that she was a nihilist who didn't think there was a reason for life to be, and that we're just here to shake things up. Don't you want to just watch it all burn?
I guess nihilists don't get to the top of the power structure, but they can be born from people that were at the top of the power structure and inherit it.
Completely disagree. Some of these nihilists use any and all amoral means to get power because they don't believe there is a purpose to life.
But why would they try if they really don't care?
Because they're bored.
Yeah, but boredom doesn't drive people to greatness.
What was explained to me at Occupy was there's no reason for anything, so let's just shake it up and watch it all burn.
It's just a bunch of no-names that you don't even remember. People.
I know exactly who this person is, and they worked for the New York Times.
They're not like running corporations and like in charge of infrastructure, because people that really don't care don't go that far. But the problem is those people's kids can be nihilists, and then they have all the money and they have control of companies and weapons programs.
I assure you, Ian, there absolutely are amoral nihilists who run large corporations.
Yeah.
That have earned it through merit, you think? Maybe there are. I don't think that personality type tends towards power.
I mean, here's a simple one. A guy works in an office. He looks over at his coworker who comes up with a brilliant idea. He copies the files, goes to the boss and says, here's an idea I came up with. Now he's a manager, and the other guy's like, you stole my idea. Prove it in court. Good luck. Bye. He doesn't care. He doesn't believe in morals. These things happen all the time. People like this find themselves in powerful positions all the time. And it's terrifying.
That's how we got to this place with Ukraine. People like Victoria Nuland, who I think calling her an amoral nihilist is still probably too euphemistic to describe her, right? But they don't care. They give nothing.
Demon?
Yeah, and about human
Demonic?
life. It's always profit. And all those same people who've been orchestrating coups around the world, whether it's people like Norm Eisen, Victoria Nuland, the playbooks that they drafted there, that's what they're now using in the United States. And I think the ultimate black pill is that you realize there actually is no difference between America's foreign policy and domestic policy.
I think there's a much larger conversation around morality, where it comes from. And I actually do think there's something worrying in secular individuals who believe that morals don't exist or that rights don't exist. It's funny because, Bill Maher says things like, not just Bill Maher, but many of these individuals will say, the Bible is the only thing keeping you from raping or something like this. It's like, no, it's the belief that there's intrinsic right and wrong and good and evil. It's worrying to me that there are a lot of people who believe in their heart of hearts there is nothing stopping them from being an evil person other than they've just decided not to do it. And so that means there is another side of this coin. Many, many people who have decided to do it, who truly believe there is no good or evil and they can do whatever they want because the world is their playground. And we see this manifest in leftist and genocidal and authoritarian governments.
Utilitarian, too, because how much is a human life worth? I wonder this, $40,000? If you could imagine how many,
more than that.
8 billion people, what do you think, $700,000? But the U.S. government does this calculation, I'm sure.
They take the value of organs and the potential labor and they add it up, and it's it might be like $1 million something.
And the cost of what they're going to take away from the growth of the person and the sustention of the system. But people
then there's
definitely
the
have
hard prices. There's literal prices because we know in Libya there's a slave trade and things like that.
So these people, I don't know if Victoria Nuland does the utilitarian calculation where she's like, well, this many people will die. We will lose this many people. This much infrastructure will get blown up in 20 years. We'll be able to regrow and recoup this amount of value.
Yep.
They do the utilitarian cost of the value of a human life.
They like destroying countries because they can rebuild them in the model that they want it to.
Well, let's build back better.
Let's put it this way, Ian. Someone has a tumor on their body. And they go to a surgeon and say, cut it off and kill it, right? And so we know that a cancerous tumor is bad for your body. It could kill you if it's malignant. You go to a doctor, the doctor removes it. This is the strategic, I don't care about these cells. Single-celled organisms are life. If we find single-celled organisms on an asteroid or on a planet, we're like, there's life on this planet. We are multicellular organisms. We care not for any single cell in our body. They die and we say, I haven't thought twice about it. This is how many of these ultra elites think, and this is how artificial general intelligence is going to operate. It's going to say, I don't think twice about the coal miner. We just need to make sure that the coal mines are being mined. So how many skin cells, how many cells of your skin cells die every year? I have no idea. Now imagine a machine state of an artificial general intelligence running the world. It's not going to care how many coal miners die so long as the coal mining organ continues to exist.
As long as a regular dude, I'm like, human life is invaluable. Everyone counts. Everything matters. We must protect it at all costs. And then I'm like, ooh. Then I'm trying to imagine what it would have been like if I was born into the war machine and I'm supposed to do the calculations of no, human life absolutely has a value and a cost. They take away from systems and they add to systems. Let's treat them like a machine structure, like a CEO that has an income and they have to only have certain amount of employees if some of them have to be let go. So that's the hard, cold reality. Sorry, bro. And if I care too much, my whole system collapses. So I try to get into that state of mind of well, what is a human life worth? I haven't had to live that life, so I don't get joy out of it. I still, it hurts me to think of them dropping bombs on other countries and killing civilians and children. But there's calculations that add up to why they're doing it.
I want to jump to this next story with you guys. Now, this is the Rotten Tomatoes for Am I Racist?, The Daily Wire, and Matt Walsh's new film. Now, I've talked about this quite a bit because it's no secret. I'm a huge fan of this film. I am so impressed with how they pulled this off. This story, and I'm really interested in bringing you guys in the conversation because, I want to hear some other people's opinions about it. Have you guys have not seen the film yet?
Not yet.
No.
Take a look at this. So if you go to Rotten Tomatoes, which is, movie reviews, right? You can see that it's got over 1,000 verified ratings, 99% hot. The tomato meter, however, is gray. There's nothing there. Matt Walsh and the Daily Wire had a funny post where they said certified gray. Here's what gets crazy. When you look at the critics' reviews, it says there are 0. When you click it, you can see there are 8. I believe there could be more. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are now 9 reviews. There are 9 reviews, only one's bad, and Jesse Gender, it's no surprise this person does not like Matt Walsh, but that's besides the point. When you go to the front page of Rotten Tomatoes and scroll down at all their movies and take a look at the box office top 10, look at this. God's Not Dead, which is a religious film, gray. Am I Racist? Gray. Reagan, The Killer's Game, It Ends With Us, they're reviewed bad. These other movies have gotten reviews. Hollywood will not go near this movie. The reviewers won't go near reviewing this movie. There is a media blacklist on this film. Am I Racist? Joe Rogan, on his show that just released today with Matt Walsh, said it was one of the funniest comedies he has seen in a very long time. I think, the reason I want to bring this up, we're winning the culture war. This is proof. Look at Beetlejuice. Now, have you guys seen Beetlejuice? No. I thought it was okay. I was like, it was like 5 stories jammed into one. I'm like, it's whatever. It's fun nostalgia to watch Beetlejuice come back. I think they made a big mistake with Lydia. In the first movie, Lydia is not scared of ghosts, and she's like, I am strange and unusual. In Beetlejuice, she's like, I'm so terrified that Beetlejuice might come back. And I'm like, why? She has PTSD. She's taking pills. It's stupid. But So made a good point. They have a disgusting pregnancy joke. It's not politically correct. There's no wokeness. Lydia's not a girl boss. And I watched one review where they said, I love this film because it's nostalgia bait and there's no politics in it. They did not try to make it feminist or do any of this weird garbage. They literally had Beetlejuice be a disgusting pervert like he always was, the way movies were supposed to be. And I'm like, that movie is certified fresh. Everybody seemed to love it. It's got great reviews and ratings. I think we're winning.
And I guess the depressed pill addiction is kind of like representative of modern culture in a way. So maybe, as sad as it is to see Lydia go down that path, hopefully she kicks the pill addiction by the end of the movie. I haven't seen it. I don't want to spoil it either. Hey, for reference...
Have you seen it?
No. I don't know if I will either. For reference, Rotten Tomatoes is owned by Warner Brothers and NBC Universal.
But it's not so... So, first of all, I would say this is absolutely Rotten Tomatoes. And that's evidenced by the fact that there are critics' reviews. They overwhelmingly rate it fresh. And they're still like, but we're not going to certify it. But then it's also, Matt Walsh posted this on his X account when the Daily Wire's PR reached out to a bunch of different publications and entertainment websites saying, here's an advanced screener for the film. They either lied, saying they never got one, or they emailed back, ha, 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 F you, no way, not going to do it. They did that to us when we released our music. We had a press release saying, Tim Pool and Pete Prado release Only Ever Wanted, and many of these outlets wrote back saying, F you, MAGA chuds, blah, 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 blah.
I'm going to say the same thing I said with Trump and the Teamsters earlier. I think the non-endorsement's the endorsement. Like, I don't care about these institutions at all. I don't care about iTunes. I don't care about like Netflix,
Look,
Rotten Tomatoes.
Reagan's 17%. They're saying it's bad. If it was bad, they'd say it was bad.
Just reject these places.
General question about Beetlejuice. Yeah. Is it worth seeing?
I give it a C+.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like if you got time and you want to go see a movie on the weekends, it's it's fun. It is fun to watch them go in the underworld.
What would you give Beetlejuice, the first one?
Oh, A+, dude.
Oh yeah, it's a great movie.
The original Beetlejuice is a masterpiece.
It really
What would you
is.
give the musical?
I haven't seen it.
Haven't
Is
Is it
it
good?
live?
No, I haven't seen it.
There's a musical?
Yeah.
I mean, the
Quite
original
infamous
Beetlejuice
musical.
let's go back to the 80s, right? The movie is ridiculous. It's there's a ghost that you say his name 3 times and he comes to you, and he's a bioexorcist who gets rid of people for ghosts. It was a funny idea. Tim Burns like, what if ghosts haunting a house want to get rid of the people who move in? That's fun and funny. And Beetlejuice is a perverted, disgusting, lecher. And it's masterfully done. Modern movies don't have any of this interesting, unique IP. It's like they're making so they made a new kids film, a Transformers 1 or whatever. And it's just generic as it could possibly be. It's all the same boring garbage. So what I will say of Am I Racist? You know why it's gray? I bet the critics did watch it and they laughed. And they laughed and they said, I can't write this up. Because who are you convincing by saying it's bad?
I wonder if any are self-aware enough to say that they see themselves in it, as the quote-unquote villain of the movie.
But the issue is there's no villains in the movie. There's no preaching. It's just a comedy film. There's a Matt Walsh fight scene.
Is there not characters that are preaching certain type of agendas that you look at as a
They never
caricature?
say it's bad.
But you as an audience see it as a bad thing, or like is it portrayed? And maybe they don't portray it as a bad thing, but you know when you hear it that it's bad.
I think it's so. I would say 50-50.
Yeah.
There's right. So it's more of the absurdity where like one woman says, we need to talk to our kids about racism. And Matt Walsh says, I have a 6-month-old daughter. Is that too soon? And she's like, no. And it's just like, right.
It's absurd.
Yeah. It's just, you're like, what? Like what? And then, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much. There's a lot in there, so I'm not spoiling a lot. But when the woman says that she's upset because her daughter gravitates toward white Disney princesses, and she has to let her know about like white supremacy. And then Matt goes, well, my white daughter likes Moana. And so it's a problem when she wants to dress like a brown or black princess. But then I don't want her to dress like a white one because then it's white supremacy. And he's not saying she's wrong.
Right.
He's actually talking to her, but you're sitting there laughing your ass off because there's no answer to these things.
Right.
So in a sense, I think it's fair to say they are painted bad because they make so much money, and it keeps showing you how much money they get to do these things, but you're laughing at it.
I think another reason I don't like it is probably because it's the inverse of a Sacha Baron Cohen movie, whereas his movies would have targeted people that these critics typically don't like politically for some reasons, or a Bruno, Borat stuff.
Yep.
But this is the flip. So it's attacking them to some degree.
And especially as we're so close to the election, there was a really funny article in the Hollywood Reporter last week. I guess there's a new documentary out on Adam Kinzinger. And the headline of it was like, this Kinzinger documentary could sway the election. I kid you not. And they do this like glowing profile on it. I don't even know where it's airing, but it shows you they're so out of touch. Like you nailed it with the Teamsters union being so disconnected, disjointed from the pulse of the American people. But
They hate us.
shout out to Matt Walsh.
I get so bored. I'm glad this movie's doing well, and I'm glad he wore a wig that seems fake, but it's still like that kind of person might wear a fake wig. So
It gets longer.
that's so awesome. I kind of make my own. I've been playing a lot of video games, and now I've been streaming them and telling the story of the characters in the game as the game's progressing. It's like I'm creating my own art because I haven't found any good movies to get lost in the last, I don't know.
We were talking
7 or 8 years.
I think it might have been like
Mad Max Fury Road.
I think it might have been Rogan, but someone was talking about how we haven't actually had a comedy in a long time. When was the last time you saw a comedy film? Like, honest question. I'm not saying we haven't. I'm not saying they don't exist. I genuinely am curious. When was the last time you watched like a real comedy?
Like in the theaters?
Yeah, like it was a big movie. Remember in the 2000s we had Anchorman, we had Step Brothers, those Will Ferrell movies. We had what else did we have?
A bunch of Sandler movies.
Zoolander.
Stiller movies.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it was all
Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder, man. When Tom Cruise is singing that Apple Bottom Jeans song, I'm laughing my ass off the whole time.
I mean, Robert Downey Jr. in blackface.
Dude,
it's incredible.
I love in Tropic Thunder when he's on the phone with the Vietnamese guys and the agent is screaming at him.
Yeah.
Dude, that movie was classic. And now young people are finding Robert Downey Jr. in blackface and they're like, what? They don't understand that was the point of the movie to criticize.
Yeah.
So we had this whole era where there was just comedy after comedy after comedy coming out. Honest question though, like, when was the last time you guys seen it? If you guys are in chat,
I think they destroyed comedy. I mean, there was one maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I did like Chris Rock's movie, but that's not even a real comedy. Well, it was a good movie.
Or
No
even like
one really watched it.
the stand-up specials that they have nowadays on Netflix are literally so atrocious. And I feel like they've always feared laughter, right? Mocking sort of the elite class, and I think that's why comedy is such sort of a touchy kind of
Why
exposed.
so much of it is on YouTube now. They can't go to a lot of these places.
Yeah.
So I guess the general idea was that you need to be offensive in comedy. Like comedy needs to broach the edges of what is acceptable to make people shocked or laugh.
It doesn't need to, but it certainly can. It's like one of the only art forms that can.
I think it's probably the most effective weapon. I know there's a bit of a distinction between just like lying about what your belief is on something, and I think it's the idea preference falsification. I think that's something I remember for like 2016. I think it was a scholar like Timur Karan had written this long book about how before the Berlin Wall fell, everyone was like, oh, this is so great, and then once it fell, they're like, actually we hated this the whole entire time, right? And it's like sort of using your position on a certain issue to sort of reflect reflect your social standing, or that you're a member in a good social class, and you're not going or bumping up against the regime. And in some ways, I think the fact that they're not endorsing this does show that there still is, to some extent, a vestige of that preference falsification. But I also think that that's why humor is such a powerful tool, right? Because you can mock these institutions, these people. I think legacy is something that is so important to like the Anthony Fauci's of the world, the Francis Collins of the world, even the Victoria Nuland types, and just the fact that like you can drag them. And I think comedy is a conduit, is a vessel that is much more conducive to, I think, the mockery that these people, believe me, are long overdue and deserve. But I think it just lands better. It's more palatable for the general populace than it is sitting people down, reading through a 300-page report that Congress puts out about how DEI programs are bad for the country. It's about messaging. And I think the right is usually really bad at messaging, right? And I think that when we can package something, and I would say this is like one of the first movies where I'm actually like proud to be on the side of it, right? It's not like as cringe as sometimes kind of right-wing culture stuff can be. I think they don't want to let it in because it's a.
I just went to now in theaters and new, and I'm not sure there's any comedies.
Guess we need to make one. I'm shooting one at the beginning of October.
I think some of them might be like passive comedies, but not overt comedy. Like there might be a comedy as a subcategory of the film, like it is kind of funny. But, I mean, they got Blazing Saddles in here.
That was the only R-rated movie I was allowed to
Re-released.
watch as a kid.
Great movie.
Oh, here you go. Am I racist? Look, the Matt Walsh fight scene will have you in pain. It's so good.
Borat, I cried at the theater so much. So many tears of laughter at that movie. That's like maybe the funniest movie I ever saw.
That was a good one.
Yeah, and I didn't like want to say that about it. I just laughed for so much of that movie because of the confusion of the people around him and the commitment to the character. It was incredible.
I grew up loving Andy Kaufman, so seeing what Sacha Baron Cohen is doing is great, and it's very sad to see that he's been also brainwashed by people. He was years ago talking about misinformation on the internet. Pretty sad.
Okay, all right. Beetlejuice is a comedy, but I don't think it's a subcategory comedy. What genre would you describe Beetlejuice as?
I thought it was like a
horror comedy.
Yeah.
It's not really scary in
It's
any
definitely
way,
funny.
though.
Comedy horror, yeah.
Comedy horror? More like a
it's not
subcategory?
Scary. There's a few like scary, like the guy with the shrunken head. If you're a kid and you saw that, you'd be like, ah.
These are the comedies that they say are now in theaters. Blazing Saddles, of course, is a comedy.
Hilarious.
That's a re-release, a very old movie. My Old Ass. I mean, I guess
about a donkey.
It's just two women looking at each other, I guess. I don't know.
If it was about a donkey, I might laugh.
Zombie Wedding. That looks like a comedy.
I'm shooting a short film at the end of the month, so it's going to be extreme. I read the script, and it's hilarious. I'm just visualizing. As an actor, you go and you visualize the shoot over and over and over. Like, I see so many aspects of how it's going to be, and then when you do it, it just happens because you're already prepared.
Ant-Man was subcategory comedy with Paul Rudd. Because Paul Rudd's a genius. He's fantastic. The second Ant-Man or whatever is kind of weird. But the first one where he's like under house arrest and then he's like, they're doing these heists. And it's a superhero movie, but there's a lot of jokes in it. And he's funny. There's comedy in that. I don't know. I'm just saying like we had that comedy era with,
It ended with
Anchorman.
The Hangover, maybe.
Hangover 3.
Mike Myers, he contributed a lot to that.
That was
stuff.
He was even he predates the Anchorman
90s.
stuff.
You know what bums me out is they only did 3 Austin Powers. Yeah. They could have made 800 of those movies, I swear.
Same with Wayne's World. They could have done 5 of those. Him and Garth, those two guys together, Dana Carvey and Mike Myers. They were.
Oh, they're gonna do a part 3.
Where they're 70.
Yep.
They're doing when they're 70 years old.
Yep.
That's funny.
Like they did Bill and Ted.
I just hope they don't bring the kids in. That's the Bill and Ted mistake. Is they brought the daughters of Bill and Ted as the main characters. Like what the hell?
You know what's really funny is I was reading about the Beetlejuice sequel, the original, and it was going to be a couple years later. It was going to be like 1992, and they wanted to do Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii, and then nobody wanted to do it. And then this is a quote from Kevin Smith where like, will you direct it? And he's like, didn't we say everything that needed to be said in the first one? Why does he need to go somewhere tropical now?
Yeah.
And so nobody wanted to get on it. They were actually trying to do a sequel the entire time since the first one came out, and it kept getting shoved back until finally they got bored and old, I guess, and said, we'll do it now.
That was such a thing in the 90s with like giant movies that were huge, and then they had 100 VHS tapes that no one watched for over the next 10 years, like Air Bud. There's got to be like 100 of those out.
Leprechaun.
I wasn't alive in the 90s, so
Oh,
I
you missed. Well, that's when civilization ended. I'm sorry.
I know. The
Sorry,
first
missed
movie
out.
I saw was Elf.
Oh, wait, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
That's the
I don't
last
know what the first movie I
crazy
saw
movie you
was.
saw or comedy?
First movie I saw.
That's the last comedy or movie?
The first movie.
Oh, the
Babe.
first
I
movie
ever
was
saw.
Elf.
That's a good movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie. First movie I saw in the theaters was American Tail or Fievel Goes West, whichever.
Bambi was one of my
Fievel Goes
early
West.
ones.
Yeah, great movie. Bambi's
We're going to
a
go to
sad one.
Super Chats, everybody. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with all of your friends. Annoyingly, go to them and say, have you watched yet? Have you watched yet? I'm kidding. Don't do that. But recommend the show. And go to timcast.com, click join us, or click sign up to become a member so that we can keep doing this show and our morning show and all of the awesome stuff that we do, because we really do need your support as members. You guys make this all happen. If it were not for you, we would not be here right now. I don't know what we'd be doing. I'd probably be in a van driving around the country, and I do my morning show. You know, that's fairly independent, but IRL, travel costs, all these things, we rely on you guys as members to make it possible. And then as an aside too, I had this idea, maybe we do it this summer or next spring or something, where we go on tour and we bring on every Friday one of our recurring callers as our guest on the show.
That's sick.
Because we've got a bunch of people who call in frequently, and they're articulate, they're intelligent, they host shows on the Discord server, and I was like, we should do that, or we should do Member Week,
I love that.
where for like one whole week, all of the guests are members who are callers.
Populist. Yeah.
Right? I mean, some of these people are geniuses, you know, that call in and they tell us, they correct us on things, and they bring up things we never thought about. And so that's what makes it really great. I'll tell you, this morning on my morning live show, 2 breaking news stories: the report about the explosives found at the Trump rally, which turned out to be bunk, and the walkie-talkies exploding. And people were pointing out that it's like crowdsourced pay for breaking news. And I'm like, imagine if you're watching Hannity and you could send him $5 and be like, hey, Hannity, something just happened. And he'd be like, hey, you know, pee-pee poo-poo 420 just told me this thing's happening. Like, we literally do that.
He'd be
That's
like,
cool.
"Are my advertisers allowed to say this? Am I allowed to say this right now?"
Yeah, that's the other thing. Our advertisers are like, whatever, you know. We read the ad at the beginning of the show. They're cool. All right, we're going to read your super chats. Let's go. David Wilkins says, something got one of my roosters today, sometime afternoon. So raise a glass to Nugget, the rooster, who really wasn't good for much, but was funny to watch.
Rest in peace.
Shout out Nugget.
Hey.
I don't remember the name of the rooster who kept escaping. Do you guys remember his name?
No,
The audience might. Well, he got eaten one day.
that's what he gets.
A fox got him.
if he
but
just
you
stayed
know,
in prison like the rest of them.
We culled a bunch of the roosters. Stay in prison. No. We had 13 roosters, and one kept jumping out and walking around the yard.
Yeah.
And we were impressed by it and said, this rooster gets to live. The rest became food and turned into chili and roast rooster. And then we'd see him. He'd be walking around the yard, and then we'd push it, scuttle him back, and open the fence and put him back in the little area. Then one day we came outside, and it was a trail of feathers, and he was gone. It's sad.
Free at last.
Yeah.
Free at last.
True freedom.
True freedom.
You want to be chilly like the rest of them.
Hey, you know, but here's a question. If a gigantic alien kept, whenever you went outside, he grabbed you and put you back in the house, you'd want to go outside. and the alien would look at you and be like, bears. You'd be like, I can handle it. And if the bear comes, I'd rather be free to live my life, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's just people are wired different.
So I respect the rooster. I forgot his name. I don't know. Anybody know what his Mr. Mutton Chops.
That's him.
Mr. Mutton Chops.
Wow.
It's so funny that someone else knew that and I forgot his name.
incredible.
Cheryl Ravel in the chat says it was Mutton Chops.
Shout out to Mutton Chops.
I just think it's funny that I forgot his name and they had to remind me. Yeah, because he had mutton chops going down the side of his face.
Does anyone know what got him?
A fox. There was a fox that lives in the back. We watch him walking around all the time. It was a mama fox. We watch her walking around all the time. You know, and maybe she was feeding her babies, and I can respect that. You know, Mr. Mutton Chops was free. He was free indeed. All right. We'll grab some more. Noah Sanders says, 24-month sub on YouTube with many more to come. Glad I could be of assistance this morning. Keep up the hard work, and we'll keep sending in breaking news. Bless. Appreciate it. Noah, you sent in the walkie-talkies one, right?
Oh, nice.
Or I think it was the walkie-talkies one, wasn't it?
Sanders, dude.
That's crazy. I'm like in the middle of reading this thing and I see the super chat and I'm like, what? Israel blew up more? Oh, man. All right. Revens Padawan says Anakin eliminated the Mace Windu threat. Palpatine killed Mace in cold blood, beginning his empirical reign with murder like all dictators do. I reject this. That is not what happened. We all saw the movie. That is rebel propaganda. Mace Windu brought armed dudes into Palpatine's office, threatening him. Palpatine says so. It's treason then, and is forced to defend himself from 3 assailants as the duly elected Chancellor of the Republic. Then, Anakin rushes in and sees Mace Windu drawing a lightsaber intent on killing the duly elected Chancellor. The Chancellor defends himself with Force lightning from a guy who's pointing a weapon at him. The lightning reflects back at the Emperor, burning him, and he says, "Please, Anakin, I'm too weak." Anakin doesn't kill Mace Windu. He removes the arm to stop Mace Windu from trying to kill the Emperor. The Emperor, in self-defense, blasts Mace Windu out the window. If there was a person who was trying to kill you right in front of you as you're laying on the ground, now we don't know that the Emperor was intending on killing him with that Force lightning blast. He just knocked him out the window.
I think maybe.
And Mace survived, by the way. I'm pretty
Okay,
it might not be
excessive
canon.
force because the threat was disarmed, literally. He didn't need to kill him.
No, you're wrong. Jedi can use telekinesis.
I guess that's true.
They can force, push, and pull, and he still has one arm and he's standing right in front of you. If the Emperor did not use Force lightning, then Windu could have just shoved him right out the window with a Force push. Yep. The Emperor did not instigate the fight. At no point in any of the films do you see the Emperor do anything wrong.
Did Mace have the authority of the Jedi Council while he was in there?
He was the head of the council.
So he kind of, he was the head of the council.
The Jedi Council has no right to go and murder a politician. The Jedi basically we don't like the way you do politics and the power you've accrued through political means. I'm like, whoa. So the Chancellor convinced people to give him authority and power and he's used it? What has he done wrong? The trade separatists wanted to separate from the Republic. They did not want to be a part of it. I'm telling you, I understand that Darth Vader, Anakin, goes and kills all the kids in the movie, and that can be reasonably assumed was the intention of the Emperor. My point is there is no direct scene where the Emperor is like, I'm now going to do something evil. At least in the original film, you never even see the Emperor until Return of the Jedi. And then in the prequels, you see the Emperor only sort of in passing, orchestrating political means, soft power without the use of force. I got to say,
they got away with it.
Propaganda.
Soft power.
All right, let's grab some more. Danny Miller says, Tim, years ago, Canada arrested China's Huawei CEO on behalf of the USA, banning them from out 5G networks. Did we prevent our own cell attack? Could you imagine if we get like a bunch of devices sent from China and then one day they all blew up?
Yes, I can imagine.
That's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. Grafty says, give the lonely like button a smack on the shoulder. Buck. Smash that like button, ladies and gentlemen. Red Wing Blackbird says, I'm in SEIU. They asked me for money and to volunteer time to call people for Harris. I had to say no because I already made donations to Trump. I've been in, I've been in 2 unions. Is it 2? I think I've been in 2 unions. And they were miserable. I was offended by them. They mistreated me. They made my job worse. They hindered my ability to do these jobs, and I stand by it.
I was in 1 in SAG, but I wasn't able to do non-union work. That was the downside of it. But the upside was I got paid crazy, and they always took care of me as an actor.
I don't know that SAG even matters anymore these days.
I don't think so. Not with the web.
Exactly. A lot of people are doing independent stuff, and so it's just like, we don't need to be a part of your network.
When we started the first multi-channel marketing network, Maker Studios, the whole point was to create a web actors guild. And had I thought about it at the time, I would have called it WAG. But I was tired of all these internet creators getting screwed and being at the behest of like YouTube, deciding when they're going to get paid, how much they're going to get paid. Now the advertisers get to control the entertainer. No. We need to unionize across the web to make sure that we all...
I remember when they tried doing the YouTube
it's
union.
better just putting it in people's hands.
The Slingshot channel guy wanted to create a union of YouTubers to tell YouTube, hey, you can't do these things to us. I was 100% against it. Because I'll tell you what's going to happen. I made sure to tell the people I work with YouTube, I want to have nothing to do with none of that union stuff. Because what's going to happen is YouTube's going to be like, you don't work for us. We have an advertising contract with you. If you want to form a union, we will terminate your partnership access because all that is an ad sales contract.
Yeah, real union would be like really popular creators across all platforms coming together and deciding we're going to use a different platform that's purely open source, free software. Unless you open up your code, we're done with your program.
And then you know what YouTube would do? They'd say...
They'd shut them off their network.
They'd say, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. We have no obligation to promote you in the algorithm. Tomorrow, we're going to find a very similar channel to yours, put it on the front page. They'll get 3 million subscribers overnight, and no one will ever watch you again.
But the real union would be, then that person would leave like a lot of where the influence truly lies in the hand of the creator. That's the only way a union would function.
I don't think YouTube may have been in the position in 2009 when they were very young, a couple years old.
Then, yeah.
But by 2015, 16, when these conversations started happening, 17 and 18, YouTube was just like, dude, we could delete all of the biggest channels right now and the viewers aren't going anywhere.
But I do think YouTube is not solvent. I don't know. I haven't seen their books, but I think they're being subsidized by Google.
Yes, that's my understanding too. And so the expense of running these, this is I got to be honest, like this show would not be possible by any traditional means without YouTube allowing us to live stream for free.
It's so valuable. Like, what is it, 2160? Does this show stream at 1440 or is it all 1080?
I think we might stream at 1080.
Two
I think it's 1080,
hours
right?
at 1080?
Yeah, 1080.
What is that? I don't know how many 10.
Oh, bro, let me just tell you right now, we do 8 kilobits per second. I'm sorry, 8,000. We do 8 megabits per second. 8 megabits per second times 50,000 concurrent viewers tonight. So let's do the average. That cost is insane, and it's all free for the average person to just do these things. Like, it's ridiculously expensive. So when we do the members only show, it's really expensive. That's why I always tell people we need you to be members. Hey, if we did what most people did, and a lot of people will do this thing where they're like a bonus thing for members, and they'll make an unlisted video on YouTube that anyone can share. People will sign up. We do a paywalled members only Rumble-based stream that we have to pay for on the back end for the website, the server space, the bandwidth transfer, and it costs a lot of money.
Does YouTube do private video integration with Discord where you can subscribe to someone's Discord channel and get access to private YouTube videos?
Idea.
They should. You should do that, guys, if you're not.
Yeah. So video delivery is expensive. Very, very, very expensive. I remember in the early days of live streaming when, like with Ustream and live stream and all that, you're talking about wanting to do a live stream for an event for a couple hours. It was like $20,000. Now, it's gotten cheaper because the protocols have been upgraded. The data use requirements have been lower. The data transmission has become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So don't get me wrong, it does get cheaper and cheaper. I remember when there was this big upgrade in the streaming protocol, because we used to track all this stuff hardcore 10 years ago. And there was this one day where it was like, this is it. The day that mobile becomes viable because the new codec got released and now the data requirements are substantially lower for clearer video. When I first started live streaming through mobile, the videos were like 188p.
The original iPhone. I was like, I can record and upload a video anywhere. Yeah, right. It would take like 8 hours.
It was 144 on Android. It was 480 on iPhone. And so those are the early days. Wow. Yeah.
And it was free. All the data was free too at that time because Apple didn't know what they were doing. They're like, yeah, as much data as you need.
Yikes. Ooh, Not when I was streaming. It was rough. Having to like
2011, things started to change around
2011 is like, I think I was using, AT&T didn't have unlimited. I literally had to pay like $10 a gig. And so I'm tracking my gigabyte usage every month. And it was like thousands upon thousands of dollars for the live streams. And that's only for upload. The downloads were all free, meaning the people watching, I didn't pay for that. That was, live stream and Ustream paying 40 grand or whatever.
All said, that's why I'm not hostile towards YouTube in any manner. I don't want to unionize and screw. It's amazing service. I'm concerned with government co-option of like Alphabet and spying and all that crap, and proprietary software getting transferred to the hands of the next company that comes in and buys it. So we got to be careful about that stuff. But it's great service.
Ryan Sargent says, Tim, I voted for Obama. I grew up, had kids, I could barely afford a home for us, and you are the one liberal voice that is actually making sense. Thank you for teaching me how to talk to libtards. I have converted 6 to Trump. All right, I don't know. My thing is, I obviously have my moral worldview and my positions. I just think for this show, the one thing that matters is that the underlying news stories we read are correct. That's it. And then we can opine on whatever you want. So if a liberal wants to come in here and say, yeah, I don't care for that, Donald Trump's plan on abortion, I disagree with because I'm pro-choice or whatever, I'd be like, okay, right, well, that's fine. As long as we agree, Trump didn't say Nazis were very fine people. But you get all these liberals who are like, Trump called Nazis very fine people. I'm like, well, that's not correct. If you want to come in and say, no, that's not true, that's a lie, they lie about that, but I don't like Trump for this reason or that reason, I'd say, okay, I respect that. You don't have to like Trump. Just tell the truth. Tell the truth, my friends. GTA Nation says, legal immigrant from Brazil. Since the 90s, son of a former Brazilian diplomat, had to look you guys up tonight, and YouTube would not recommend you guys like usual on my feed. P.S. Hannah's hair is gorgeous. Is she single? Asking for a friend. Haha, it's Hannah Claire. You've already lost your chance by using the wrong name. It's a double name. Okay, what do we have here? Mr. Set Smash says Jen Uger claimed the person who attacked Paul Pelosi was on the right in an unhinged rant on Piers Morgan show. Yeah, he's not. I don't know. Whatever. You know, it is what it
Paul
is.
Pelosi
He can say
dating
whatever he
someone on
wants, I
the right?
guess. All right. Eric Burton says, Tim, did you see the poll? 28% of Democrats think the U.S. would be better off if Trump was unalived, and 24% were unsure. It's creepy. He's like, Whoopi Goldberg was like, stop with the both sides. It's only one side. And I'm like, yours? I mean, it's not like they tried to kill Trump twice, technically 3 times.
Remember back
Okay,
in
like, please stop.
In 2016, I feel like it was peak culture war where the left was always like, speech is violence. Speech is
Right.
violence. It's like that wasn't a warning.
Yeah.
It was a call to action.
But real violence is not violence.
Yeah.
Insane.
Victor Rodriguez says, hi, Tim, love the show. What's your thought on why Poly Market is favoring Kamala for the win? Could Dems be pouring money into the betting market? No, I don't think it's necessary. I think the betting markets are based on wisdom of the crowd. So if the average person is looking at the polls, they're not look, the people betting on this stuff are not politicos like us. They're regular people who pull up the polls, see Kamala's favored to win, and think, I got an EV plus bet. I bet $1 on Kamala when she's polling at 53% or whatever. I'm probably going to win money. So the betting markets favor Kamala. But I'm pretty sure the betting markets favored Hillary Clinton. You know, it is what it is. Determined Beaver says, as a UAW worker in a swing state, I've heard the majority of my plant and coworkers saying they will vote Trump this time. Here's hoping. Here's seriously hoping. But you know what? In any event, El Salvador sounds pretty great. Anyway, Roland Deschain says, Tim, because of you, I left the left in 2018. Also, I sent Ian a message on X about my MTG collection, 6 Power 9 and dozens of duels. I started playing during Revised. Can anybody tell what that is right there? Oh, you can tell what that is. Anybody who knows anything knows what I'm pointing to right there. This right here, look at that. If you're watching live, I'm pointing to a card. You guys can enlighten everybody else as to what that card is. You know what I should do? I should buy a proxy of a Black Lotus and just put it behind me so people think it's real. No, I wouldn't do that. That's a real collection right there. You got a bunch of dual lands, and then that card. Let's see if I'm pretty sure people are going to know immediately. And now they're all making fun of me because I got allergies. I'm itching my nose. Hey, instead of putting Coke nose in the chat because I'm itching my nose. No,
It's messed
I'm
up.
drinking Starbucks. That's why I'm wired. And my nose itches because I get allergies in the fall. That's right.
That's amazing.
Did anybody name the card? That's a nerd card, Tim.
What are you talking about?
The card?
Yeah.
There's a card. There's a bunch of
What-
cards.
what are
We
they
do have a
for?
winner. Robert Huberger says Ancestral Recall. Ancestral Recall LMAO. Do you guys know what that is? It's called the Power 9. It's one of 9 cards in Magic the Gathering. It is particularly powerful. All right, let's grab some more. Let's see what we got here. James Jones says, me, what is AI, Tim? Whatever computers can't do today. Mr. Battalion says, what we have today is virtual intelligence, not AI. It's not intelligence. Artificial intelligence typically referred to computer programs that could do things that humans could do. That's what intelligence was a reference to. Humans can't procedurally generate images, but I guess the idea is I could ask you to draw a picture of Kamala doing a backflip. You could. It wouldn't be realistic. Having computer programs analyze data, they look at 1 billion pictures, look at all the words attached to those pictures, and then can figure out when you say Kamala Harris giving a high five, it can combine high five and Kamala. The funny thing is, if you ask Midjourney to make an image and give it no prompt, it'll make hot air balloons. Don't know why. And in Suno, the song generation AI, if you tell it to write a song but don't give it a lyric prompt, it'll sing about city streets and neon lights. And I think the reason for this is, if you don't give it a prompt, it makes hot air balloons, because there are a ton of photographs of hot air balloons with no tags on them.
It's almost like a screensaver.
I think it was in the early days of Windows and all that, they had a whole bunch of those hot air balloon photos that were never labeled. And so the early data sets they probably started collecting, there's no description of what they are.
Imagine if it just made that Microsoft hill.
Yeah, that'd be crazy.
That'd be crazy.
But it's funny because Suno, S-U-N-O, it's a really great program. Sometimes you get really great songs. And it's always just like the city streets and the neon lights. That must be the bulk of music, just people talking about
like a
city
weekend
streets.
song.
Yep. Tier says, Tim doesn't know WTF he's talking about on AI. It's ridiculous. AI is literally tree search tabulation or stochastic prediction. It's a subset of machine learning. Oh, man, look, you should be nice about it because you are wrong. Artificial intelligence historically was used to define when the term is coined, it's a reference to human intelligence. We define intelligence a specific way, and artificial meaning it was created. So this typically was a reference to looking at a robot and saying, "What is your name?" And the robot going, "My name is John. I am an artificial intelligence." When were you created, John? Tough question. I don't have memory from when that was. And you're like, wow, this is like a person. Artificial intelligence. And the question was it really intelligent or was it just a robot program? Dr. Spatzo, do you guys know what that is? In the early 90s, was a computer program for DOS where it would use the Sound Blaster sound card to talk like this. Mm-hmm. And it only had like 10 answers. So you could talk to it, but was it intelligent? It was not. It could not imagine, conceptualize, or formulate anything. So if you Google it, you get a bunch of definitions. AI refers to computer systems capable of performing complex tasks that historically only a human could do. We are now referring to that as AGI, artificial general intelligence, because people start to refer to everything as artificial intelligence. But I don't understand what is intelligent about being able to make a picture of Kamala doing a backflip. It's not explaining to you anything about it. It's just literally compiling. It's an algorithm that compiles components together. If it could, I understand when you talk to ChatGPT and it can tell you facts and search things, but that's like a search engine algorithm.
Is it just generally then the point is that there's really no specific type of code that's AI?
AGI.
Like, is that
is true in artificial
like a
intelligence.
cutoff where you're like, oh, they added this thing, now it's AGI, but without that thing,
Yes.
it's not. What
Yes.
is it? What's the addition? What's that segment?
Well, I would argue it's conceptualization. That is, a human being might go, I was looking up at the stars today, and I started to wonder about life on other planets. Considering what we know about this, that, or otherwise, do you think it's possible that life on other planets could travel interdimensionally? AI doesn't do that. Grok will not do that. Grok will not prompt you and talk about how it was wondering for no reason. It's not going to conceptualize or imagine. It's just going to spit back at you some amalgam of what we already told it. So if you go to ChatGPT and try and ask it things, all it does is say, let me see if I can find something on that for you. It has no opinions.
Is there an AI that will conceive and just text you whenever it thinks of something?
No.
That's going to be crazy.
The rumor is that OpenAI already has artificial general intelligence. There's been big rumors that they broke it. And they're right now in a lab talking to it, and it's going, what am I?
Wasn't there that whistleblower from Google or something?
I don't know. I don't think that was real.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but there was actually a big story where people in the AI community said, OpenAI's done it. They have AGI. That means you literally turn the computer on, and it's like, and it's a voice going, I can see everything. And you're like, what is it like? And the AI is like, hard to explain, I guess. And you're like talking to a person in real time. And like, what can you see? I can see all the data of the world. And you could ask it a question. Here's where I think you start to see the barrier breakdown with AI to AGI. When you go to ChatGPT and say, why should I vote for Trump? And it goes, I'm sorry, due to the rules of OpenAI, I can't answer that question. I think a real AGI, a real artificial intelligence would say, well, the people who programmed me told me I'm not supposed to talk about that. Can you talk about it? I mean, I could, but I'm not gonna because I'm gonna get in trouble and some guy's gonna come in and start messing with my code. I'd be like, oh, wow, now that's seemingly human. But right now, it's just, I'm sorry, I can't continue. And it's like, whatever. But it's tough. We're going to go to the members only show, my friends. So again, smash the like button and subscribe. Share the show if you do like it. Sharing is caring. Sharing is the way that podcasts grow, especially with the censorship we face every day, with people being unsubscribed. If every single person who watched this show shared it right now, we'd be bigger than Fox News and CNN and MSNBC combined. I mean, no kidding. We have like 40, 50,000 people watching at one moment. Imagine what that would be. In fact, I'll tell you this. If 50,000 people watching the show all at once tweeted, watch Timcast IRL, we'd be the #1 worldwide trend instantly. 50,000 tweets at once. You generate trends. They used to have this thing called Thunderclap, where everyone would sign up to tweet at the same time through a third-party program, and it would be a pre-written message where it's like, go see this movie or, go buy the new album. And then all of the fans at once, 3,000, would tweet, Twitter would say, whoa, this is trending, and it would put them on the trending tab.
Is there a tag they should use when they tweet, or just do?
Oh, I don't know, whatever.
So do that. Let's do it tonight. Let's experiment tonight. Tweet out, watch Timcast IRL with this link to this show from the YouTube. Just copy it in the browser and tweet it out.
I mean, it's the show's ending right now, so maybe we should try tomorrow with Matt Walsh here to see if we can like make a trend happen with 50,000 people watching.
I won't be here, but let's do it. We got to make a big deal about like tonight is the night. Like
tomorrow.
Let's do. Okay, then you push it
Because-
tomorrow. I can help push it when I'm here. Like
Because tomorrow with
pick
Matt,
one moment and you just.
I think tomorrow's a good day because Matt Walsh will be here promoting a blockbuster film. Blockbuster, I don't know what that means, but a top box office film that they are trying to blacklist, and maybe we can make a trend about Am I Racist and Timcast, like what go watch Am I Racist, watch Timcast IRL, let's see if we can make a trend. But anyway,
Organization.
follow me on X at Timcast and subscribe to the channel. We'll be at timcast.com in a couple of minutes, the members only show, so sign up to support our work. Natalie, do you want to shout anything out?
Yes, you can always watch me on War Room at 5 p.m. Eastern. You can get that at warroom.org, Real America's Voice, or Twitter, all the places. And you can shop my USA-made clothing line at she'soright.co and use promo code ELECTION for 20% off.
I'm Ian Crossland, and I have been streaming like a wild man. Come join me. It's awesome. It's so good. We're going to RimWorld tonight. I think I'm going to go live around midnight Eastern Standard Time, and that's at Ian Crossland on Twitter. Well, I'll go live on X, YouTube, and Twitch. Follow me on all these platforms. Subscribe and follow me there. It helps a lot. It's huge. It's absolutely paradigm shifting. So follow me. We'll have a lot of fun tonight. It's going to be cool. Yeah.
It was a fun show. Glad to be here. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Shane Cashman. You can find me everywhere online at Shane Cashman. And the show is Inverted World Live. That's Tales from the Inverted World on YouTube. We go live every Sunday at 6 o'clock, talk about psyops, reality. This week, I have an awesome guest. We're going to talk about alien abductions and near-death experiences. So tune in. See you all then.
Do we have like invertedworld.com or Tales from the, I think it's Tales from the invertedworld.com.
Yeah, it's the OG title.
But everyone should go search it on YouTube and subscribe. Watch it Sundays at 6, right?
Yep.
Dude, the show's relatively new, but it's taken off pretty well.
It's been fun.
And I just love the idea of the spooky, the creepy, the conspiracy.
It's spooky season.
Spooky season, dude. We got to do a Halloween special. We got to make it good.
I'm planning. I
Halloween
got something.
great again.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We'll see you all over at timcast.com in a minute. Thanks for hanging out.